She has been sworn in. So all members have been sworn in. We have a quorum. Okay. I'd like to go back to item number 1, agenda changes. First,
We're going back to agenda item 1.
public comment, that's it. Okay. Are there any speakers for item number 2?
Good afternoon. I'm Patrick Minetshaw. It's good to see returning experienced Sunshine Task Force members to balance out this body. I would like to remind the new members that by having taken an oath to uphold the California Constitution, you have a similar duty to uphold CIPRA. Mr. David, do you know what CIPRA is? And that you will be required, since the Sunshine Ordinance relies heavily on CIPRA, to also uphold the state constitution and CIPRA. I hope that's clear to all of the new appointees.
Good afternoon. My name's Dr. Derek Kerr. After 20 years at Laguna Honda Hospital, I became a whistleblower. We reported misappropriations of the patient gift fund and recovered $350,000 for the patients. We reported a conflict of interest in a city contract, resulting in the recovery of $430,000. I mention this because I'm worried that some of you came on board after a purge of the prior task force. This purge was triggered by a determination that Supervisors Wiener, Chu, and Cohen violated the Sunshine Ordinance in handling the Park Merced contract. 2 months after the Park Merced determination, Supervisor Wiener ordered a retaliatory survey of the costs of the Sunshine Ordinance and the task force. This would-be hatchet job was stymied by public appeals to the Budget Analyst's Office. So, last month, the same supervisors claimed to be shocked because the task force had amended its voting procedure 1 year before. This is now being used as a pretext to purge the task force and to exclude qualified candidates. The work of this task force is important for whistleblowers. We never could have accomplished what we did without the good work of this body and the Sunshine Ordinance. So I really hope that you will all work to hold government accountable. Thank you.
Members of the task force, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. And I want to say something that I said before the Board of Supervisors yesterday. The removal of previous task force members was basically retaliation for their decisions finding in favor of citizens in opposition to other city bodies, and in particular the Board of Supervisors. I think in placing you on this board as the new members, they have placed you in a really kind of unreasonable and uncomfortable position. Because the real question will be, since they did retaliate against others for deciding against them, what is there to say that the replacements are not going to be in the back of their mind, always considering whether or not, if we find in favor of a complainant and against the city, that the same thing might not happen to you. I told them that what they did was they sent a message to all boards and commissions: don't you dare find in violation, us in violation, because what we will do is what we have done to the task force. I believe that they knew full well that their replacement of all the members of the task force, without exception, and I mean, and I told them that they do intend to replace, if they can, the remaining members from the previous task force. That basically what they did was send a message to all of the city bodies: don't decide against us, because we have a way of getting back at you. And there is a long history in this city of people who sit on multiple task force for many years and are repeatedly assigned to new task force. And basically what they want to do is go along to get along so that they can remain on a task force and be reappointed to other ones. Now, whether or not, and I am going to give each and every member the benefit of the doubt, but the obvious question will be, when a complainant loses, they will have to wonder in the back of their mind whether they lost because they failed to make their case or whether they lost because the jury was intimidated by the previous treatment of the previous members. I think that was unfair to you. It was certainly an unconscionable act on the part of the Board of Supervisors, and Supervisors Wiener and Farrell in particular were the arrangers and colluded to do this.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Petralis. I'm a person living with AIDS, and I'm also a Sunshine advocate. And I have a few things to say, and at one point I'm going to turn around to address the audience, but that will not be because I want to turn my back on you. It's because I want to address the public, which will also be broadcast on the web. In the 1980s, before people with AIDS even had AZT, for me and my friends, Freedom of Information Act requests were a matter of life and death. That is where I come from regarding sunshine issues. Before this meeting started today, I asked Todd David, a newly appointed member to this panel, what his qualifications are to be sitting on the panel. Unfortunately, Todd David said he doesn't have qualifications. He said this numerous times in front of witnesses. It is not okay to say to a person with AIDS who has managed to live since the 1980s, who views sunshine as life or death, to tell me a man who publicly says he is unqualified to sit on this panel should sit on this panel. Now I'd like to address the public.
Excuse me. Point of order. Point of order. Point of order.
Point of order.
Point of order. Excuse me, Mr. Petralis.
Mr.
Petralis.
Thank you.
Are there any additional speakers?
Yes. Hello, my name is Doug Comstock. I wanted to welcome the new members. I'm sorry about the cloud under which you came in. I'm sure it's not your fault, and I don't blame you for it. I hope that we can all get along because we got a lot of work to do. There's a lot of sunshine that needs to be sunshined, and we're gonna shine it as much as we can. I have faith that you'll all do it, and I look forward to being here in this room, whether I'm back there or over here. I think there's a lot of work to do, and we're going to do it well. I don't know if you're familiar with this. This is the petition for the Sunshine Ordinance from 1999 that I saved, because I save everything. And I know that Rick and I stood out on street corners and got tons and tons of signatures. Rick used to turn in 1,000 signatures a week. He was just amazing. And I worked on the street corner as well to get Sunshine passed. So forgive us all if we're passionate about it, because it took a lot of work to get where we are. And I'm sure that we're all going to uphold Sunshine because it's so very important. I wanted to refer you to the findings and purpose of Sunshine, item E, that says that public officials who attempt to conduct the public's business in secret should be held accountable for their actions. Only a strong open government and Sunshine Ordinance, enforced by a strong Sunshine Ordinance task force, can protect the public's interest in open government. So that's what you've sworn to uphold, strong sunshine. So I'm glad that we're all here, and we're all, except for Mr. Sims, but I'm sure that he's going to do the same. And it's a delight to see you here, Angela. So anyway, thank you very much for taking on this job. It's a big job, and I'm sorry that there's a cloud over the beginning, but I'm sure sunshine is going to fix everything, as we know it does. Bye-bye.
I'm Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, and have been coming to Sunshine Ordinance Task Force meetings for very close to 10 years. I think what previous speakers have said certainly is something that you would do well to keep in mind, and I too am very disappointed in the Board of Supervisors for essentially having a bloodbath of previous members so that essentially everybody can, or almost everybody can be replaced. Be that as it may, I think the purposes of Sunshine are very important to keep in mind. There are some very beautiful phrases and words about the purposes of Sunshine in the California Public Records Act, which I hope you'll certainly read the introduction to, as well as some of the details, if not all. The Sunshine Ordinance itself, under Section 67.1, says findings and purpose. Under Section B, well, let's go with A. The Board of Supervisors and people of the City and County of San Francisco find and declare government's duty is to serve the public, reaching its decisions in full view of the public. B, elected officials, commissions, boards, councils, and other agencies of the city and county exist to conduct the people's business. The people do not cede to these entities the right to decide what the people should know about the operations of local government. There's a good deal more to say, but I would basically like to say this. The Sunshine Ordinance Task Force has been a place where ordinary folks, I would say citizens, but it's for anybody, not just citizens, where folks can come and hope to have an opportunity to get justice under the law without having to hire an attorney and without the complexities and expense that lawsuits would require. The justice that people come and seek is not just for themselves, though that's certainly something that's at issue when cases come before you, but justice for themselves as representatives, if you like, of the larger public in the city and even beyond. And I hope that you will take the responsibility seriously to serve justice and to undertake your duties with seriousness of purpose and keeping in mind that you're serving all of the public in San Francisco when you make do your work and make your decisions. Thank you.
Are there any additional speakers? Seeing none, I'd like to move back to item number 1. Appointee David Sims, again, will be is scheduled for travel plans, will be out. He does plan to attend the next month's meeting in July. Is there a motion to excuse Sims?
Motion to excuse.
There's a second?
Second.
Is there public comment on the motion?
Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. In the previous task force, one of the changes they made was they changed to the voting requirements as far as the rules and the number of members present. And one of the reasons they did that was because of the lack of attendance. There are bylaws for this group. I would advise and ask all of you to be familiar with those bylaws. And if you, for whatever reason, miss a required number of meetings under those bylaws, I would expect that you would volunteer to resign from the task force rather than placing members of the public in the position where we were numerous times, where there was a quorum of 6 members, and to prevail in your case, you had to get all 6 votes. That is not fair to the public, and it is not judicially fair. So basically what I would like to say is that each and every one of you should be holding each and every other one to being here and attending the meetings at all times. And if under the bylaws you fail to make the necessary attendance, then it is upon this body as a whole to take those members to task, to tell them either be here or resign, because you are representing the citizens of the city and county of San Francisco, and being absent for whatever reason. Yes, life is what happens while we're planning other things, but the bottom line is if your other things interfere with your duties here, you cannot be on the task force and serve honorably.
Good evening again, Patrick Minot-Shaw. Supervisor Scott Wiener, during the full Board of Supervisors meeting, wrongly accused the previous members of the Sunshine Task Force as having not kept up with its duties and its agendas. It's complete crap. If you look at the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force annual reports posted on the task force's website, this body, previous members, has dealt with nearly 600 complaints over an 8-year period. They did an admirable job keeping up with their calendar, performing outreach and education to the community, developing proposed amendments to the Sunshine Ordinance, and conducting many, many hearings. They tried to streamline efficiencies on this body.
Point of order, Madam Chair. I regret interrupting the speaker, but he's not speaking to the motion that's on the floor.
I am getting to that point. My
motion on the floor is to excuse
about
an absence.
the motion and David Sims not being here, I will address in a moment. The fact is, this body has done an admirable job, and by and large, the members attended and showed up on time. It's unfortunate that Mr. Sims has chosen to give Mr. Wiener a black eye, that he couldn't even make his own swearing in. This sets a bad precedent for this body going forward. I hope this body, over the next 4 or 5 years, will have the courage and the ethical skills to usher through 600 more complaints and to manage your calendar as well as the previous body did.
Are there any additional speakers?
Yes, Peter Warfield. One of the things that's very important with Sunshine is attendance. In fact, excellent attendance. And one of the reasons is that a great deal goes on. There's a great deal of precedent. There's a great deal of discussion about issues that are related to past issues and past experience within the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. And so attendance is vitally important, as is institutional memory. And I'll wait until the folks are finished talking amongst themselves while I'm speaking. Thank you. As I was saying, I think it's extremely important to have excellent attendance for everybody because it's an important job and there's a great deal of detail that goes on that's both interesting and important to keep track of, and that it's very difficult to keep track of if you're not actually here, as well as institutional memory I was referring to. And that's one of the unfortunate things about so many new people in terms of this body as a whole. So I won't say that you should or should not excuse. I think perhaps you might clarify what excused absence means in terms of your bylaws. I believe that a certain number of unexcused absences is cause for potential disciplinary action. It's not anything that terrible if the absence is a rare unexcused one. But I think you should consider, first of all, what the implications are of excused versus unexcused. And I think that getting off on the wrong foot and too easily excusing an absence would be an unfortunate thing. That said, I do understand that there may be a special circumstance in this particular moment with this particular seat holder. Thanks very much.
Hello, Michael Petrellis again. I think your minutes need improving. And the reason why I'm bringing up the minutes is because
of
it's
order.
something of a record that
Point of order.
it's a
Mr.
public
Petrellis.
record that the absent member could look at to see what happened at today's meeting. I am very concerned that the absent new member, who is David Sims, will only have the minutes to look at to know what transpired at this meeting. As far as I know, you do not have a requirement that says members who miss meetings must read the minutes. I would ask, if you were taping the meetings on the government TV channel, would you require David Sims and other absent members or potential members, would you require them to watch the video in addition to reading the minutes? My concern is that by being absent, you're not only harming the process in terms of how votes may go down, but you are also harming yourself in that you're not getting the memory, the actual flavor of the meetings and complaints. You should let people speak to make their points before you're trying to shut us off. It's a horrible sign of what's coming.
Are there any additional speakers? Can you hear me?
Yes, your mic's on.
Oh, it's on. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
It's public comment. Let me make my point. It's no joke. It's no joke.
Can we take the motion to excuse Sims, appointee Sims, without objection? Objection? Okay. The motion passes.
Madam Clerk?
Yes.
I'm wondering if you've heard from Member West.
I have not heard from Member West.
Okay.
Okay. The next item on the agenda changes is that item 12020, William Clark versus the Arts Commission. The complainant has withdrawn the item. Twelve 020.
Item 18 on the agenda, file number 12020. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Also, there's been a request by Supervisor David Campos to have item 15 heard toward the beginning of the agenda due to schedule restraints. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Sure. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Madam Clerk?
Yes.
With all due respect to Supervisor Campos, who has over the years been a very forceful advocate for sunshine, I kind of have a problem with moving his item forward. There are lots of people here, lots of cases to be heard, and you know, there are people here who they're here on their own time, and I really don't think it's a good idea to play favorites here.
Is there any further discussion? I'd like to open up the public comment.
Members, you know, I know it's a controversy, but thank you for being here. I'm opposing the motion. I have 2 items on the agenda before that, and at the last meeting, I waited until 11 o'clock at night on these agenda items, and they were continued to this month. So I respectfully request that you hear the calendar items in the order that they're recorded. Thank you.
Good evening, task force members. Thomas Piccirillo. I am in opposition to the motion as well. No individual, whether they're a supervisor or a sheriff, should get priority in terms of your agenda. Supervisor Campos should stay on the agenda item, and then perhaps he can see the importance of appointing members who show up. So I am strongly against the motion to give Supervisor Campos, who appointed 5 of you, priority. Thank you.
Members of the task force, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government, and there's a part of me, since it's my complaint, that would like to have it moved up to the front, but I don't think it is really fair to anybody else to have an agenda to plan, because they plan on coming here at a certain time and being heard in a certain order. And I think that going against precedent, which has been a long-standing precedent, as Mr. Nee has mentioned, is really showing favorites. And it really sends a wrong message to members of the public that because you're opposing a particular person, all of a sudden your case is going to be moved up. There have been situations in the past where this kind of a request was granted and the complainant wasn't there. They didn't have a chance to address the complaint. They didn't have a chance to address the move, and they didn't even have a chance to be here in time. And then they show up an hour after the meeting starts thinking that they're the 6th item on the agenda. There's no way they are going to be heard, and rearranging the agenda to suit private individual needs, even a supervisor, is really a bad precedent to set.
Patrick Bennett, I'm also opposing this motion. In the past, the task force has occasionally, in rare exceptions, moved the order of agenda items to accommodate people who are disabled or have an illness, to move their agenda item forward. But that is one of the few exceptions that has been made. As much as I respect Supervisor Campos, I don't think supervisors should be granted exceptions that other members of the public are not. So I would encourage you to vote against this motion on the floor.
Are there any additional speakers?
Derek Kerr, I'd also like to oppose the motion just because government officials are not more important than public citizens. Thank you.
Are there any additional speakers? Seeing none, the motion is back with the task force. Is there any further discussion? Or I'd like to take a roll call. Member Nee?
No.
Member Nee, no. Member Grant?
Yes.
Member Grant, yes. Member Monet?
Pass.
Member Monet, pass. Member Washburn?
No.
Member Washburn, no. Member Pilpel?
Yes.
Member Pilpel, yes. Member David?
Yes.
Member David, yes. Member Highland?
Pass.
Highland, pass. Member Fisher?
Yes.
Fisher, yes. Member Monet?
No.
Member Monet, no. Member Highland? Highland, no. Okay, there are 4 ayes and 4 noes. What happens?
Fails.
Fails.
Well, wait, does it?
4 to 4, so it fails no matter what.
But I thought.
Yeah, no, so it fails. Yeah, it fails. The motion fails.
Madam Clerk, were there any further agenda changes?
No, there are no further agenda changes.
Thank you.
Point of order. For the people who have hearing disabilities in this room, I would greatly appreciate it if members of the task force would speak into their microphones so that we don't have to shout and interrupt your meetings by shouting. Please speak into the mic.
I'd like to move to item number 3, annual election of officers.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Oh, this is for Chair?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment. Since ordinarily officers are elected for the July through June fiscal year, I would like to offer a friendly amendment that the nominations be effective for this meeting as well. And I would like to nominate for Chair Member Grant.
So first, I'd like to open the nominations in order for chair. So you said Chair Grant, Member Grant. Okay. Are there any other further nominations?
We have a question. I have a question.
I have a question. Are you saying just for this meeting? I just want to make sure I understand.
No. The friendly amendment, ordinarily, election of officers are for the July through June fiscal year. But we don't have a chair right now today, so my friendly amendment is to make the election effective for today as well as for the coming year.
Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
All right. So Member Grant has been nominated. Are there any further nominations?
Can I make a motion?
Yes.
I don't know where this fits in. Given that everybody is not here yet, I was wondering if I could make a motion to nominate an interim chair for this month and then revisit this next month when everybody is present, when we've had a chance to hear from everybody on the commission, on the task force.
Through the
you.
chair, the agenda item is for the annual election of officers rather than for a temporary election of a temporary chair. I believe that would be a substantive change to the item, so that would not. It's a motion that's not in order.
Can I ask a question? Can we continue this item until the next meeting?
The item. Well, ordinarily, the task force members chair, one of the task force members chairs this meeting and is nominated and elected as a chair. In order to continue this item, you would have to have the administrator serve as the chair throughout the meeting, and the administrator has a great many other duties to take care of, and it would make it very difficult for the meeting to move forward.
Could we have an interim chair just for this meeting, or is that?
There's not an item on the agenda to elect an interim chair, so that would not be in order.
Can we add that?
Through the chair, agenda items cannot be added at the meeting. They have to be on the agenda that's noticed and published in a timely manner so that the public knows what will be on the agenda.
Are there any further nominations for chair? Okay.
Yes.
Your nomination?
I'll nominate David Pilpel.
Okay. Member Pilpel is nominated. Are there any further nominations? Okay. If not, nominations are now closed.
I would like to return to Member Nee's motion because I don't think that ever got addressed. Right? It's a friendly amendment, whatever that. We don't. It has not been voted on. So if we want whoever to serve as the chair to start tonight, wouldn't we first need to deal with Member Nee's friendly amendment and then move on to nominations?
Maker accepts.
I'm sorry?
Maker accepts the suggestion.
Oh.
Okay. So the motion on the floor from Member Nee is to amend the motion. I'm sorry, can you repeat your motion?
It's a friendly amendment to make the election of the chair effective at this meeting as well as for the coming year.
Is there a second?
Second. For the coming year?
Okay.
Oh.
Is there any further
It's still a
discussion?
one-year thing.
Yeah, it's 13 months.
Public comment, please.
Members of the task force, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. As I did in last year's election, I want to speak strongly in opposition to the election or potential election of David Pilpel as the chair. The reason is I have been dealing with Mr. Pilpel and interacting with him for the last 3 years. And in his attitude, he is constantly, adamantly pro-City Hall and against complainants. In fact, he sits in the audience and he advises the respondents from City Hall how to use the law to get out of their case. And bottom line is, putting someone with a known reputation for a one-sided attitude as your chair would be probably the worst possible thing I can think of to start your term.
Point of order, aren't we currently discussing Mr. Nee's friendly amendment?
Correct.
So we're not discussing I just want to be clear, we're not discussing the appointments or the possible
Correct.
appointments or the possible vote on chairs yet.
Correct. The motion we're discussing, ladies and gentlemen, and members of the task force, is on whether to include the election as effective today as well as for the coming year.
Hi, my name is Bruce Wolf. I'm the immediate past chair of the Sunshine Orange Task Force. I've been vice chair of the task force for a very long time, having served since 2005. It's been a regular practice of the task force when a member makes a friendly amendment that doesn't necessarily change the motion substantively, that if the maker of the motion and the second of the motion accepts it, then it's accepted unless one of the members objects to it. If you're going to do what you're asking, then it wouldn't be a friendly amendment. You're asking for an official amendment to be made. Then you would go through the process of public comment and taking a roll call for that amendment, and then go back to the original item that was on the floor. This is just basic parliamentary procedure. So, if Member Nee had made a friendly amendment, it should, if the maker has accepted it and the seconder has accepted it, and there are no objections, just move on. Thank you.
Excuse me, members of the audience will please be silent.
Through the chair, there's an agenda item here, and there was a motion made to make the agenda item, basically to amend the agenda item. A friendly amendment is an amendment of a motion that's already on the floor. There was no motion on the floor at the time Member Yee made his motion. He was moving to slightly change the language of the agenda item. Because the change was not a substantive change, it is allowed. So it does need to be voted on.
Taking public comment. So on this motion, I'm speaking in favor of you taking a single annual vote tonight. You should do it tonight and be done with it.
Is there any further public comment?
Yes, Peter Warfield.
Yeah.
Could you clarify whether we're just discussing whether the person elected will serve tonight as well as the rest of the fiscal year, or are we also discussing the nominees that have been put forward?
At the moment, Mr. Warfield, we're discussing only my friendly amendment, which is to make the election effective today as well as for the coming year.
Thank you very much. I would support the motion. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to continue. Oh. Sorry. Let me restate that. I'd like to make a motion to continue this till next month, as I had originally stated. I've been advised that that can be done, and have an interim.
Point of order, don't you have to finish the first motion on the floor before making an alternate motion?
Madam Chair, I believe it is possible for a substitute motion to come forward. That motion would have to have a second.
Right. So the motion on the floor, you're saying you would like to continue? You like to continue this the item number 2?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second? Yeah.
Wants to do is new motion and amend it, correct?
I can't hear you.
I don't have a mic. I'll try and speak up. One close. Just to make sure I understand this correctly, are you suggesting a second amendment or a different amendment, different motion?
This is a substitute motion. This is a substitute motion to continue the matter.
I second that.
Thank you. Yes, it is a competing motion.
Madam Clerk,
Yes.
if we can get it to a dull roar out there.
I'm sorry.
Could the members of the audience please be silent?
Thank you, Member Nee.
Pilpel?
Mr. Petrellis, if you are not going to cooperate, sir, we can have you removed from the premises.
To the members, hi. I'm just referring to the bylaws, Article 2, Section 3, election of officers. The second sentence, the bylaws, Article 2, Section 3, election of officers. The second sentence, if any task force office becomes vacant, that office shall be filled at the first meeting after the vacancy occurs. I believe that there are vacancies in the office of chair and vice chair. This is the first meeting after those vacancies occurred, and we should, pursuant to Article 2, Section 3 of the bylaws, fill those vacancies tonight at this meeting, period. I don't know that we have discretion not to. I think there are some options about how to go about that, but I think we do need to do that thing here and now.
All right. First, I'd like to continue. Are there any further speakers on the first motion to have the chair start today? In support.
Also, let's take public comment on the substitute motion.
Excuse me, Madam Clerk. There is a substitute motion on the floor that would take precedence.
So we have a first and a second on the substitute motion.
To continue.
Yes, to continue. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none.
Through the chair, Member Pilpel makes a very good point. Article 2, Section 3 does require that there be a vote tonight to fill those offices.
Could it be a temporary? Sorry.
Through the chair, Member Fisher, I believe I've addressed that issue previously. If there's no agenda item for a temporary filling, so the possibility is not here tonight, although it could have been if the agenda item were worded differently.
Thank you.
Move forward.
Live and learn.
So the motion on the floor is the substitute motion to continue. Is there any further discussion? We'll go to the floor to public comment.
So on the substitute motion, it was disturbing when Mr. Petrellis asked Mr. David what his qualifications were, and the answer was zip. It was also disturbing when I asked Mr. David if he knew what Section 6730 or 6734 was. What this motion on the floor tells me is that the maker of the motion, Member Fisher,
Yes.
and the member whose name I can't see because there's no tag, who seconded it, clearly have not read your bylaws. So your homework is to read your bylaws and to read every section of the Sunshine Ordinance so that you know exactly, Mr. David, what 6730 and 6734 are before you start hearing complaints. If you haven't done your homework, you should have, following your appointment by the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Are there any additional speakers?
I think I'm.
Actually, I was hoping not to prolong this, but I think we're seeing a demonstration of the fact that maybe, just maybe, some of the new members have never attended a task force meeting before. which would suggest that the procedure and the manner in which matters or motions are taken up are handled is something new, totally new. So I'm not going to ask that each person who has not attended a task force meeting to raise their hand, but it seems to me that it would be better if the persons who are new here and who are not quite comfortable were to at least take a little bit notice of the fact that there are three members here who have been stalwart members for a long time. They have no access to grind, actually, whereas I can't speak for the rest of the members. And it would be a good opportunity, I think, to get the benefit of their knowledge and their experience. Thank you.
Members of the task force, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. One of the comments made by Supervisor Wiener in his decision to remove all of the members of the task force and move to get extra people to replace the ones that have still managed to hold on was the fact that the running of the task force was way behind schedule, and all these other comments he made, some of which I agreed with and some of which I felt were totally unfair. But the reality is, as previous speakers have mentioned, if you haven't done your homework, if you don't know the Sunshine Ordinance, the Brown Act, the California Public Records Act, and if you don't even know your own bylaws or method of procedures, then basically you are going to be just as inefficient. In fact, you will be more inefficient than anything that the previous task force members did. And that is one of the basic problems with replacing everybody as a means of retaliation, instead of maintaining the memory and the experience of the members of the task force.
Thank you. Are there any additional speakers?
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Courier. Welcome to your new jobs. And I appreciate the fact that you have not done your homework, no offense, and you don't know what your bylaws are. And this is what happens with a meeting when you don't have a chairperson running the meeting. If you want to start running a democracy by committee, great. You can't run a task force by committee. You need to have a chairperson that runs the meeting. And you need to have a chairperson that will call the sheriff and remove people and ask people to please stay on point, because you're all over the map, no offense. Your bylaws say you need a chair today. You're out of order if you go forward without a chair, and I'll file a motion against you all if you continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional speakers?
Good afternoon. My name is Pastor Gavin, and I want to second the motion that Paul Courier just mentioned. I think that for those of you who are new to the task force, it is pertinent that you had been experienced with what goes on and had come to several meetings. Fortunately, at this meeting, we do have some veterans who are still with the task force, and if there is anything that is out of order and with the guidelines and regulations for the task force and the city charter, I myself will be filing a motion to condemn this meeting. You will be out of order, and we will have sunshine and a democracy in San Francisco.
Are there any additional speakers?
Hello, member. My name is Doug Comstock. I believe that Mr. City Attorney Threet has already ruled that this order is. I think we're talking about the postponement now, right? Okay, that's what's before us. City Attorney Threet has already ruled that that's out of order, but I think it bears some importance that we look at if this is an amendment to the bylaws that you need to make, you can amend the bylaws, of course, by a vote of the majority. If you look at Article 8 of your bylaws, amendment of the bylaws of the task force may be amended by a vote of the majority of the members of the task force after presentation of the proposed amendments as an agenda item at a meeting of the task force. The task force should give 10 days notice prior to final action by posting on the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force website and by sending a copy to the Public Library Government Information Center before considering any amendments to its bylaws. I think this would require an amendment to the bylaws. Thank you.
Is there any additional public comment?
Peter Warfield, I would suggest that you not postpone the election of officers, but that you do it today. And also, you have some very experienced people still on the task force today, and you might benefit from their knowledge and experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment? Seeing none, the item is back with the task force. I'd like to take a roll call vote on the motion to continue. Member Nee?
No.
Member Nee, no. Member Grant?
Pass.
Member Grant, pass. Member Monet?
No.
Member Monet, no. Member Washburn?
No.
Member Washburn, no. Member Pilpel?
No.
Member Pilpel, no. Member Sims is absent. Member David?
No.
Member David, no. Member Highland? Member Highland, no. Member Fisher?
Yes, but thanks anyhow, everyone.
Okay. Okay. We'll go back to member. Okay, yes.
Live to fight another day.
Okay. We'll go back to member Grant. You passed.
Pass.
Okay.
Point of order doesn't.
Point of order,
Point of order.
Madam Chair, you can't
No.
pass twice.
No. Okay.
Over it.
Okay.
It's all good.
Okay. The motion fails. So we'll go back to nominations. So we have.
Actually, we're back to the main motion.
I'm sorry. Thank you. We'll go back to the main motion, which is Member Nee's motion. We had public comment on the motion. Is there any further discussion? If not, we can take roll call on the item. Member Nee?
Aye.
Member Nee, aye. Member Grant?
Aye.
Member Grant, aye. Member Monet?
Aye.
Member Monet, aye. Member Washburn?
Aye.
Member Washburn, aye. Member Pilpel?
Aye.
Member Pilpel, aye. Member David?
Aye.
Member David, aye. Member Highland?
Aye.
Member Highland, aye. Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Fisher, aye. It passes. The motion passes. Now we can go back to nominations.
The 10th person.
So those nominated for chair are Member Grant and Member Pilpel. Would those nominated like to speak? Or any further nominations?
I want to hear kids speak.
Nominations are now closed. Member Grant, would you like to speak? Or Pilpel?
Madam Chair, don't we need to do a vice as well? A vice
We'll do
chair.
that.
After.
Hello, everyone. This is my first meeting. I am new to the board. I think the one thing that qualifies me, I have read the bylaws, all the things of that sort, is that I don't come with any agenda. I come to represent the transparency that's so important on this board, and that's why I accepted this position. So I don't have any agenda if anyone thinks that. I have been in the media for 15 years. I am a TV producer, and I have worked with the public pretty much my whole entire time, telling people stories and listening and learning and trying to be very unbiased in what their story is. And judging from that, I will make fair assessments of what's necessary. That's pretty much it. Thanks.
Member Pilpel?
Thank you. And I did not anticipate this sort of situation, but these things happen. I am not seeking to be a candidate in opposition to Member Grant, just as a candidate for the office. I have served on this task force for 4 terms previously for a combined 8.5 years. I'm very familiar with our bylaws and procedures. I think it was clear that the Board of Supervisors wanted a change for whatever reasons. I lots of people have strong opinions of me one way or the other. I understand that. I feel that it's important that we change the way we have done things here so as to be more efficient and deal with the substantive issues that really are important to provide transparency both for meetings and records, but to do so in a way that doesn't cause our meetings to run as long as they have, and to organize our committees and the work of the members somewhat differently. So I have the experience, I have the time to devote to this, because I think it will be a considerable amount of time, and regardless of how this comes out, I intend to work with all of us here to get to a better place. And I think that it's not us versus the government. I think we are all part of the government, and we need to find ways to work collaboratively and cooperatively to make this work. So that's my statement. Thanks.
At this time, I'd like to give the members an opportunity to speak in favor of the nominees.
I would just like to say that I think that supporting, I'll be supporting Ms. Grant on this motion. Not that there's, I know that Mr. Pilpel is very knowledgeable in this area. I just think that with everything that's, kind of the excitement around the kind of nominations of new people on the board, I feel that, having someone who kind of, does not, someone new who kind of does not clearly have an axe to grind, or is perceived as having an axe to grind, would be very important as a kind of for a public perception point of view. So I know that Mr. Pilpel would do an excellent job as chair, but I'm also confident that Ms. Grant would do an excellent job too, and so I will be supporting her for those reasons.
I'd like to speak in favor of Member Grant's nomination to be chair. This is principally an administrative function. There's a lot to do behind the scenes, working to get the agenda out, tracking our cases to make sure that we don't lose anything in the mix. But primarily to conduct a tight meeting where members have a chance to speak but not to overwhelm, where members of the public are heard, and I would very much like to see you in this position. I support your candidacy.
I also support Member Grant in this position, and I think perhaps maybe consider Mr. Pilpel for the vice. I think that'd be a good combination.
Thank you. Are there any other words of support?
Why don't I just say, given the tenor and the circumstances, I'm willing to withdraw my nomination. I hope Member Grant knows what she's getting into, but I'm certain. Okay. Well, then maybe we should do this before you figure out what you're. So at this time, I'm prepared to withdraw my interest in the office.
Member Pilpel has withdrawn his nomination for chair. Are there any further words of support? I'll take it for public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Osbury. Mr. Wolf is being admirable by withdrawing his name. After all, he's a sheep in wolf's clothing. In 1999, he opposed the Sunshine Ordinance going before the voters. Then he served on this body. Now he's back in sheep's clothing. Mr. Wiener was quite concerned about the length of the meetings. What Mr. Wiener didn't understand is that this body hears hundreds of cases a year, does outreach, settles cases without it even coming to a hearing by working with complainants and discharging some of the complaints even before they arrive at these meetings. Mr. Wiener had it completely wrong. But Mr. Wiener would have been in for a surprise had Mr. Pilpel become chair, because these meetings would have dragged on with his noodling, and you'll find his noodling as you move forward. Mr. Pilpel has had this inclination on this body before. And
Point of order.
And I am
Point of
speaking
order.
in support of Ms. Grant because I'm sure she will move these meetings along expeditiously and not perseverate over various interpretations, as Mr. Pilpel has done on numerous city bodies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, before there are any further speakers on this, I just want to issue a reminder that Member Pilpel has withdrawn his name, so going forward, the focus of speaker comments should be solely on whether we should accept, elect Ms. Grant.
Thank you. Bruce Wolf. I would urge you all to support Ms. Grant, Member Grant, for this position. Just want to, if it comes to pass that you are the chair, I would like to offer that you have two previous chairs. Member Nee was a previous chair, and Mr. Comstock was, including myself, and we'd be available for any support that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Michael Petralis again. Ms. Grant, I don't know you. I don't know your resume or qualifications or lack thereof, if that's the case. What I want to address is that I am very nervous. You have not been a member of this task force before, I believe, and you are here for the first time today. That really makes me nervous, that the chair would not have any institutional memory. And it is why, it's one more reason why I am so scared about the behind-the-scenes machinations of Scott Wiener that has eviscerated this task force. So as a member of the public who really values sunshine, if I had to vote on your appointment as chair, I would say no, only because right now you have no institutional memory of this very important task force.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. As I said before, and as the previous speaker and I believe others have said, experience does count. I certainly want to say that I object procedurally to the nominations being closed when the public has not yet had a chance to weigh in on whether, in fact, they might have another nominee in mind. And as I think I said previously, I certainly do, in keeping with others and my own concern for having folks with continuity and experience on the task force, at least to be chair and, if you like, traffic director, as well as being able to provide a good deal of experience and institutional memory. I would recommend that you not close nominations, and remember, you're not permitted to take an action without having, prior to that time, public comment. You're supposed to have public comment during or prior to any action. So I don't think it's legitimate to close the nominations, and I think you should seriously consider nominating one of the folks with a great deal of experience, and in particular, the longest experience and, in my opinion, the most conscientious, most knowledgeable. I would certainly suggest either Member Washburn or Member Nee, who have, as I said, a great deal, in fact, many, many years of experience that will come in very handy when there's a question of precedent, when there's a question of what should go on the agenda, when there's a question of what should or shouldn't be there, when there's a question of what's in the bylaws, when there's a question of procedure, when there's a question of members of the public rights to speak on this or that issue. And so I would urge that you consider very strongly any of the three who are holdovers, but most particularly the two that I mentioned, members Nee and members Washburn, and whether or not they are replaced sooner or later, that's still to be determined. And if they are, you can always then have another election for chair. Thank you.
I would like to say, as Pastor Gavin, that I am in agreement with the two previous speakers. I'm very troubled when we're supposed to have open government, which is what Sunshine is all about, that the way the task force has been shredded and disbanded and whatever you want to call it, we're not having that. I cannot support you, Ms. Grant, to be chair simply because of what many things the previous speaker has just said. This is one of the actual few processes where complainants can come before you, many of whom will not be able to afford an attorney. But coming before the Sunshine Task Force, from my experience, has been a task force that was unbiased and listened to all sides and looked at the evidence. I mean, some of the cases of people being wrongfully terminated, not being able to access documents, to defend their cases in court, and to have a supervisor who is in violation is beyond any ethical standard in our democracy in this country. I'm disturbed that for those of you who are not familiar with Sunshine, I'm insulted that you did not come here before to find out what they go through. My goodness, the people have given so much of themselves, so much of civic duty. Unfortunately, nobody thinks about anymore in our government. They've given their free time. They've even given as much time than some of the people who work in this building who are paid six figures. So I cannot support anyone going forward unless it is Member Washburn or Member Nee as chair.
Hello, members. My name is Doug Comstock. I served for 3 years as chair of this body, too long, some say. But I wanted to speak in favor of Member Grant, soon to be Chair Grant. I do believe that the nominations were legally closed, and I since she's a journalist and I'm a journalist, and Sunshine is heavily used by journalists in this town, I have every confidence that she's going to be a strong advocate for Sunshine. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further comment, public comment? Seeing none, the item is back with the task force. Member Pilpel has withdrawn. We have Member Grant, who we are now going to vote on. I would like to go member by member to declare the name. Well, I'm sorry, to hold back. I would like to take roll call on the nomination for Member Grant as chair of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. Member Nee?
Grant.
Member Monet?
I for Grant.
Member Monet, aye. Member Washburn?
Grant.
Member Washburn, Grant. Member Pilpel?
Grant.
Member Pilpel, Grant. Member David?
Grant.
Member David, Grant. Member Highland?
Grant.
Member Highland, Grant. Member Fisher?
Grant.
Member Fisher, Grant. Member Grant has been elected as chair of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force.
She didn't vote on herself. Point of order.
I'm so sorry. Member Grant.
Grant.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So again, Member Grant has been elected as chair of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'd like to pass over the gavel to you. So the next order of business would be to vote for vice chair of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force.
I'd like to open the nominations for vice chair. Member Nee.
Yes, I'd like to nominate Member Highland, please.
I'll second.
Any other nominees?
Member Pilpel.
Sorry. I'll second.
Anyone else? Nominations are closed. Allow for public discussion of these nominees, of the members. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Members, if they'd like to speak on,
Still on nominations.
so discussion about the nomination.
No. I wanted to nominate Member Fisher,
Oh, okay.
and then we'll discuss.
So we have one more nominee, Member Fisher.
I'll second.
I'd like to open up to each nominee to give their agenda. Member Fisher.
You want to go in order or backwards order or?
Member Highland.
Thank you. Well, I'm honored to be nominated for this position. I think it probably wouldn't hurt to have one of the old guard in this position to kind of balance, the newness of our newly appointed chair. Thank you.
Member Pilpel.
I think I've already made my statement. I'm happy to help the team.
Member Fisher.
Yeah, having heard what members Highland and Pilpel said, I don't really know either of them very well, and I just wanted to say that this task force really needs to come together and build consensus. And I've spent the last 20 plus years of my life building consensus and being the perennial middle child, and I would definitely throw my name in there and be interested. I would serve. But I'm open to anything.
On reflection, I'm withdrawing my nominee for vice chair.
I'd like to offer the floor to the public to have a comment about the nominees for vice chair, excuse me.
Hi, Bruce Wolf. I was a little concerned by hearing Member Fisher's statement about building consensus. I think that's a very dangerous thing for our deliberative body to move towards. I think if you're talking about working together and make the operations, it's one thing. It takes teamwork to do that. But to build consensus on the deliberations that you're about to go through, if the Supreme Court were to do that, then we'd all be in huge amount of trouble. So I would be very careful about using that word, but to be specific about how you use it and what it's for, because this is not about consensus. And if that's the way this is going to go, then we're moving backwards. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Peter Warfield, I'm troubled that the chair said nominations are closed, and then immediately after that took a nomination from one of the members. That's troubling, and it seems like if that's what the ruling was, that would be out of order. Furthermore, it's in stark contrast to what I just spoke about earlier, and that is you appear to have closed nominations even before the public has had a chance to weigh in. And I repeat, it's crucially important to ask your experienced members what the ordinance says. It says that you must take public comment prior to or during your deliberation, not after making a decision such as Nominations are closed. I heard somebody say that experience counts, or words to that effect. And so I would certainly like to recommend to the members that they nominate, despite the, I think, inappropriate and improper closure of nominations. I ask the chair to open those, as she did for another member, and to consider for vice chair the experienced members who are still with you and have all of the qualifications that I previously have spoken about. As I understand it, you've got Pilpel and Fisher now staying, with Mr. Highland withdrawing, and I'm sorry to hear a withdrawal. I would certainly say that there is baggage with one of these task force members, and you need only read the SF Bay Guardian editorial, which spoke about one of these nominees as somebody who would pick nits and then essentially always vote against the public. I've certainly had my experience with that member, and I'm sorry to say that I think that he has had a good deal of baggage and difficulty being fair to the public, and that's Mr. Pilpel. I also recall Mr. Pilpel coming to the Library Commission, I believe it was right after, very shortly after a hearing, and I believe the library lost, and he came to a Library Commission meeting to praise the library's work and to offer himself as assisting the library should they have any kind of difficulty with sunshine. I think that's a gross violation of, essentially, of conflict of interest. I'm not talking financial conflict of interest. He also had said at the time that he was a friend of the Library Commission secretary, even as he sat on a case, but did not recuse himself. So I would urge you not to vote for Mr. Pilpel and to consider the three experienced members still here. Thank you.
You very much.
Members of the task force, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government, and I would like to support some of the comments made by prior speakers. I think to elect two new members as chair and vice chair would be really a bad idea logistically. You have members on the task force with not only experience as task force members, but as chair and vice chair. So basically, I think that at a minimum, you would want to consider for the time you have the benefit of their experience, that you utilize it. And having an inexperienced chair, with all due respect to the chair, and an experienced vice chair would allow them to get off on a good, solid footing. And in fact, I think that person as vice chair with experience would be able to get the new chair up to speed much faster than would a vice chair without any experience, where they're, excuse the expression, sharing their ignorance.
I don't know how much time the new members have spent with Mr. Pilpel, but I've spent hours and hours with him in the many years that I appeared before the task force when he was a member. And having observed the comings and goings of the members of the task force, I can honestly say I was less. Mr. Pilpel represents the type of member who can only make it more difficult for a complainant to succeed. I wouldn't go so far as to say that he's evil, but he has a series of approaches that basically strangle the conversation and ultimately result in a no vote against the complainant. And I say that with all due respect, because I'm sure he feels that he's being intellectually honest and approaching it in a healthy way. But I don't think he's going to bring much other than what he has before. And I would think that given the situation, that current members should consider either Ms. Washburn, who has served as the chair of the Amendments and Compliance Committee for years, and Rick, of course, as long as he wants to stay. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Michael Petrellis again. Mr. Highland, if I were asked to vote on appointing you to be the chair or vice chair of this task force, knowing that you have not been part of it up to now, I would vote no. You do not have any institutional memory.
Sir, he's withdrawn his nomination.
What are we discussing then? I'm a bit confused.
We're discussing the current nominees, David Pilpel and Ms. Fisher.
Then I will address their nominations. I would have liked for David and, I'm sorry, what is the woman's first name?
Louise.
Louise. Louise. I would have loved if you and all the other new folks who want to get on this task force came with a written letter, one-page thing. Tell me, as a member of the public, what are your qualifications? You, David, and Louise, as far as I know, put nothing out on the table telling me why the public should support you, first of all, being on the panel or having any role in selecting chairs and vice chairs. Why aren't you trying to communicate your qualifications to us?
Patrick Minette-Shaw, speaking against Ms. Fisher. It's clear she hasn't read your bylaws and may not have read, at a minimum, Robert's Rules of Order. How can this body proceed with such delays? Mr. Wiener had been fretting about whether you would move your agendas along, and I see it's now 5:30. You're way past the time to take public comment, which in agenda item 20, you will note the public comment is typically taken at 5 o'clock. So you guys are way behind here. Ms. Fisher hasn't read Robert's Rules of Orders, apparently, and Mr. Pilpel, who may have, is an expert at stalling meetings and creatively interpreting minutia of the law against sunshine complainants. So I would strongly encourage that when you vote no on both these nominations and go back and take additional nominations of people who have experience, such as Ms. Washburn or Mr. Nee. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the task force. Pastor Gavin. I'm here to oppose both nominees. Ms. Fisher, I do believe you said at the last rule committee that you had never been to a Sunshine Task Force meeting. So I was kind of frightened.
That's not correct.
Well, I stand corrected, but if you have not, this is something that this is not student council. This body deals with the lives of people. It affects people, the complainants as well as the respondents. And it is a lot of work. It is not about consensus building. It is a lot of work. Mr. Papil, I'm very disappointed that you were selected to come back, given our experience on January the 3rd, when you were very supportive of the respondent that I faced in trying to help them not be found in violation of Sunshine. And as a black woman who has been fighting for her rights with the city of San Francisco for over a year, who has faced discrimination and racism, I could never support you in anything that has to do with this task force. If you're perplexed or confused, I filmed the entire meeting. You spoke against me. I cannot support you going forward, sir.
members, my name is Doug Comstock. I wanted to speak for Member Fisher. I think that she has the qualifications to be vice chair. After all, there's really nothing to do. I was vice chair for a year, and I don't remember doing anything. So it's a wonderful thing to be. You can be the vice chair in case Chair Grant is ill, and you can learn how to run the meetings before that. I'm sure you know how to do that anyway. I am concerned about Member Pilpel. I've served with him for years, long into the night, with various arguments that he would come up with. It's not much fun to be here at midnight when Member Pilpel has another brainstorm. But I do want to say about Member Pilpel that he is often right. And, much as he goes out on a limb this way and that way, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Thank you, I think.
Yeah, Paul Courier again, and I would like to speak in favor of Louise Fisher. Not you're Mark Farrell's appointee, if I understand. I'm not sure, but maybe I'm wrong. But I live in District 2, so I have a fondness for Mark Farrell. He's my supervisor. So no, maybe I'm just confused. That's all right. I want to thank Tony for streaming the meeting today live online, and I want to welcome all the viewers that are on the internet watching the Sunshine Commission conduct open government in San Francisco. It's great to have alternative media present. If you're not going to give it to us, we're going to bring it to you. So welcome to San Francisco, seriously, and hello to the internet. And I personally want to speak towards the idea of a non-biased person as a co-chair, so that when the meetings are deliberation is going on, we don't have overt prejudice. And because of the lack of experience of Ms. Fisher, she probably qualifies in that case. And Mr. Pilpel has definitely exhibited his prejudice towards so many people in the San Francisco community and so many people that use Sunshine. I don't think that he's qualified as a co-chair. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, I'd like to take a vote on our two nominees.
Member Nee.
Fisher.
Member Nee Fisher. Member Grant. Member Monet.
I for Fisher.
Member Monet Fisher. Member Washburn.
Fisher.
Member Washburn Fisher. Member Pilpel.
Pilpel?
Member Pilpel. Member David.
Fisher.
Member David Fisher. Member Highland.
I for Fisher.
Member Highland Fisher. Member Fisher.
Fisher.
Member Fisher Fisher. Chair Grant.
Fisher.
Chair Grant Fisher. Yes, 7 for Fisher, 1 for Pilpel.
Madam Chair, some of the members of the audience mentioned correctly that usually at 5 p.m. or immediately soon thereafter, we take general public comment.
Okay. And just if I may add, that has certainly been a common practice for years. So
just public comment on general issues?
Essentially on issues not listed on the agenda.
All you have to do is look at agenda item 20 and you'll see it in there.
To the chair, the agenda item 20, which is the general public comment, requires that it be taken as soon after 5 p.m. as possible.
We would go to that.
And it's now 43 after. I believe it's 3 if I'm...
How many people do we have for public comment today? Just so I can move this along for everyone and get to the agendas. So if you wouldn't mind, could we keep it, do you think you keep it to 2 minutes each, please? That would be fantastic. Well, let's see, it's a lot of people, so, I mean, there are people that have their... So,
Excuse me.
So I'm going to say that we need 2 minutes each for each
How about
thing.
2.5?
Okay, 2.5.
Thank you.
Let's go. Yes,
So,
we will
two
have
and
a
a
timer.
half.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Grant. How generous of you. I don't know how many of the new members are aware of the outstanding docket that has been referred to ethics. You should look into it promptly. There are a number of cases that have languished over there for months, including mine. In January 2011, I filed complaint number 11013 and complaint 014. It took this task force 8 months before it issued a ruling of, an order of determination followed by a referral to ethics on August 15th. For 8 months, my cases against Ethics Commission Executive Director John St. Croix and Controller's staff member Tanya Letterjew have sat at ethics. No public hearing, not a peep out of them until 2 weeks ago, after I had repeatedly asked this body to follow up with ethics and find out the status of my 2 cases. When I heard from ethics 2 weeks ago, it turns out my cases have been referred to San Jose's city attorney. If you look at the San Jose's website, it says their Department of Elections handles sunshine cases and ethics cases. So I called the city attorney, who has received my 2 referrals from Mr. St. Croix. She indicated, to my amazement, she's had a conversation with Mr. St. Croix, and I'm going, has that prejudiced my case? Then she indicated she wants to reinvestigate it. You guys need to learn really rapidly, when cases go to ethics, they're not for reinvestigation or readjudication. They're for enforcement. Should not have gone to the San Jose city attorney for reinvestigation. I asked her, so when are you going to decide about forwarding my case to the San Jose Ethics Commission or its elections department or its Sunshine Task Force? And she said, as soon as I get done reading the case file, it's thick. All of you should read my case file.
Thank you.
And you should follow up with the Ethics Commission to find out why they haven't stayed in contact with this body and why a San Francisco case is being transferred to another jurisdiction for resolution.
Thank you very much. Next.
Good afternoon, members of the Sunshine Commission, member of the public. My name is Misha Irisari. I'm a city commissioner on MOC, the Marijuana Offenses Overview Committee, on my 3rd term, and also the co-director of Education Not Incarceration and Idris Ellie Foundation. The reason I came today, although you will hear from the family later on in item 12, but that specific demand is not in item 12, the family of Kenneth Harding Jr. still is to receive a coroner's report. So we're going to file a coroner's report. She's the mother of Kenneth Harding Jr., who was killed by SFPD on July 16th, 2011. It is not acceptable that this family and the public are still totally in the dark about what happened to Kenneth. Once we file the coroner's inquest, we will also refile with your commission and with a timeline of probably 14 days top. Because on item 12 here, it took us 8 months to be heard by you. So you are in violation of compliance around the 14 days upper limit. I want to use the rest of my minute to do a minute of silence for the people.
Excuse me, can someone please turn their phone off? Or radio or whatever that is? Thank you.
So I'm using the rest of my minute to do a minute of silence for the people who have been slaughtered by law enforcement in San Francisco. Matt Garcia, presente. Aaron Williams, presente. Idris Telly, presente. Jihad Akbar, presente. Kenneth Harding, Asa Sullivan, Sheila Ditoy. There are myriads. I wouldn't have enough time. But we need transparency, we need accessibility. The public has the right to know what happened, and especially those grieving families are getting, exacerbated grief because they cannot get answers. So I'm not finished. When is my time up? 8 seconds in silence to respect those families and the memory of our children that we have lost. Ashe.
Thank you.
Good evening, Task Force members. My name is George Wooding. Some of the older members will remember my case. It's case 11040, George Wooding versus the Recreation and Park Department. I was the complainant, and you had Sarah Ballard, Mark Buell, Phil Ginsberg, and Olive Gong. And in that case, what had happened is I had asked for documents from the Recreation and Park Department, and they had denied that they had these documents, and I had the documents, and then I proceeded to provide those documents. It was, and what came from this also is that the Department of Technology was actually, for the first time, able to retrieve documents, and they had heretofore said that they would be unable to do that. So it was not a, I don't know, in my mind it was a landmark case at least, and it was a very open and shut case. And this case has been forwarded to the Ethics Department, and absolutely nothing has happened, and it languishes. And what I would like to ask this body to do is to investigate why such an open and shut case that, again, I believe was a very important case for a variety of reasons, is still not acted upon and is still being treated like many of the cases that the 18 that were retired. I think it's an important case that has merit, and I think this body should, one of their responsibilities should be, since ethics does not seem capable of handling their own business, at least this body could be responsible to the citizens and follow up and see what exactly is happening with ethics and why that particular case still languishes. So I would appreciate a follow-up. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I ask a question before the next? So a couple of these public speakers are coming forward with issues that it sounds like, different departments are not responding to them. They're not being responsive. And I'm just wondering, is it appropriate for our clerk to be, I have no idea if they've met with our clerk to see if that they've spoken with, has there been any unofficial follow-up on the task force part on behalf of these people? And is that something that it's my understanding that we as a task force are supposed to try to assist as unofficially as possible also along the way? So I'm just curious if any of that has happened yet.
Through the chair to Member David, at least two of the speakers were referring to matters that had been, I believe, referred to the Ethics Commission for further enforcement. of an order of determination where the task force had found there were violations. The matter went to ethics. The procedure is that for some matters it can be sent to ethics for enforcement, and there are complaints or that there are issues with delay in enforcement. Once it goes over to ethics, the task force certainly is free to inquire and to follow up or whatever, but the enforcement authority rests with that agency at this point.
Thank you.
And if I might, we'll talk about that further in item 8.
Okay. Thanks.
Great.
Oh, can you hear me now? Okay. My name is Marco Scott. I'm Kenneth Houghton's uncle, part of the Kenneth Houghton Foundation. And me and my family have been fighting since my nephew has gotten killed on 3rd and Palouse by SFPD for the $2 money transfer. It's been a year. We need answers. And our answers is quite a few from the SFPD in the city in regards to the footage that has not been presented to our representative attorneys. Coroner's report has not been presented. It's been a year. It's unjustful because we look at as taxpayers and as being people in here in the United States of America that proper representation is very important. Now, if there is something to be hidden or hide from the city in general with the footage, all we want is justice. All we want is answers. I plead to you from my family for these answers. Me and my sister have become activists in San Francisco. My sister's from Seattle. We have now been feeding the homeless every 3 weeks of the month. Our last feeding, we fed 250 people. We've taken responsibility for people out here in this city. And my sister's not even from here. But we do need answers and help from you guys to release the footage, the coroner's report, to our attorneys. And I would ask and request from you guys to think about this and think about it hardly, because it could be your child. It could be all of our childs. We have a duty to serve our people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Who's next?
I should have introduced myself. I'm Alan Grossman. I think you may, if you've seen some of the old movies, you may remember Al Jolson saying, "You ain't seen nothing yet." And you haven't, because you are in the middle of an enormous task dealing with the Ethics Commission, which is writing new regulations, separate regulations to deal with enforcement issues from the task force. And it's been going on a year and a half, 2 years. And the history there's a history here because the Ethics Commission has never had a hearing on any public records case referred to it by the task force, going back 5 years. There have been something in the order of 28 to 30 cases. So the institutional knowledge that's associated with that is leaving or has left the task force. But you have to ramp up. And Ms. Washburn has been intimately involved in the regulations issues. Mr. Nee, of course, has as well. And my role has been pretty serious because Mr. Threet, who is the assigned attorney from the city attorney, is only allowed 20% of a full-time position to serve the task force, and his time is all used up at these meetings. So all the other work has been done by other lawyers, primarily me. But the reason I'm making this point is that it requires a lot of background. It requires you to spend some real hard time looking at what's involved because it's right up in front and center, and you're going to have to deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Miller. I'm co-director of Education, Non-Incarceration and the Idris Stelly Foundation. I'm also the anonymous claimant on item 12 of tonight's agenda. And I will not. I will save most of my commentary concerning the item, the specific item, to the allocated time. But I would like to acknowledge a couple things. The first thing that I would like to acknowledge is that item 12 is not just a simple dispute with the MTA concerning.
Point of order. Sir, this is for non-agenda items. Do not speak to an item that is on today's agenda.
That's fine. I will be more general about it. There are multiple people in this room tonight that are family members of deceased citizens who were killed by the San Francisco and extended Greater Bay Area police departments. And tonight you will be hearing, tonight when we get to the specifics of the agenda item, which I won't speak on now, I would like this body to bear in mind that the addressing of this matter is being watched very carefully by people who have lost loved ones and are seeking justice. And the second thing that I would like to acknowledge is that today marks the 6-year anniversary of the San Francisco police assassination of Ace Sullivan. And so I would like a moment to acknowledge that, please. And finally, I would like to say that I'm compelled by the fact that there are new members on this body, because such matters deserve and require a fresh set of ears and minds to address them. However, I would say this a slight bit of constructive criticism. We've been here since 4 p.m., and a lot of the time of this session has been consumed so far dealing with parliamentary matters. And for a commission that is a task force, that is commissioned with serving open government, for poor and working people to have that much time expended on administrative issues,
Sir, thank you.
It works
Time is
against
up.
open government and it serves as a filibuster.
Thank you very much. Anyone else, please?
Hello, Michael Petralis again. At the Board of Soups, you have a little digital clock telling you how much time is left for your public comment. I think it's time for the task force to provide members of the public with something where we see where our time is, so that public comment can be better organized, shall we say. I asked the woman who was keeping time to give me a 30-second warning when I have only 30 seconds left. I want to address the importance of this task force in terms of being very independent of the Scott Wiener machinations and other folks at City Hall, shall we call them the city family, who really want to kill Sunshine. If the task force is not full of people who are independent, committed, and qualified to serve on this task force, it is going to harm the public, City Hall, and our sense of democracy in this town. Sunshine is vital to democracy. And if the task force has tons of questions hanging over its head about who's on it and how they got there, it is doing democracy a disservice. At the same time, I have to point out, as a member of the public, when I do file a request for documents with a city department, that department has a lot of paid people to work to thwart my effort to get documents. And in addition to those folks at the city departments, there is a hostile atmosphere, a hostile attitude from the city attorney's office toward Sunshine. So, you know, I am going up against hostile supervisors trying to kill Sunshine.
The speaker has 30 seconds.
Thank you. A hostile city attorney's office and hostile people within each department, in the public information office of each department. Those are three powerful levels I am up against as a member of the public, and if I have a problem, I've got to come to you. But you'll have a big cloud hanging over your heads. That will not serve democracy well.
Thank you. Next person, please.
My name is Pastor Gavin, and I echo the previous speakers, in particular the last speaker, because I'm facing something similar as a black woman with disabilities going up against Edwin Ma Lee, the mayor of San Francisco, who has never responded to the numerous letters I've written him. I'm going up against Scott Wiener, who was found in violation in case number 11048, which is on Google. I'm also going up against 3 other supervisors who were found in violation, along with Scott Wiener. In addition, I'm going up against Dennis Vivaces Herrera, the city attorney, who does everything that he can to destroy open government. Also, Ms. Osbury, please give me a 30-second warning. I am going up against the city family. I'm going up with the mayor, a supervisor, and a city attorney, all of whom I think are racist, and it will be in my filing in federal court. I'm also disappointed to see the senior clerk of the board sitting here, because I have filed a complaint against you for violating my rights under the Americans with Disabilities, Section 504. Ms. Callahan can forward you that complaint. I am concerned because you are here for the establishment. You are not here on behalf of the people who are here in this room, and we all know it. And we are not going to abdicate our rights to the city family. It doesn't matter if they're Harvard educated, if they come from Duke University. We are American citizens, and we will fight for our rights. I would also like to say that it was not until January of 2012 that it resonated with me what the Sunshine Task Force really does. The tremendous amount of work that you have done over the years is more work than some people do in this building. Although I have brought many cases before you, I can only say to the few members who are here, and in honor of the current members who are no longer here, you've done a tremendous job. The residents of San Francisco will be proud of you. I will not forget what you've done, and you don't know it yet, but you have truly made history. Thank you.
My name is Antonio Mims. I'm a Bayview Hunters Point community member. This is my first time ever coming to a task force meeting. It's not my first time being inside of City Hall, but I just want to say to everyone, have a heart, in hearing our cases, because a lot of us come here because we don't have the money to go get a lawyer, or we don't know the avenues at which, we can receive justice. So we come here and we look in your face. We've never seen you before, but we have some trust of the establishment. So please don't dishonor the trust. Hear every case. I know you may be going through a lot of parliamentary issues right now. Hear every case individually. Hear with an open heart, and just consider the people that's standing in front of you. And we charge you to actually go out and enforce, go out and get things done. Because if for some reason there's a person in this room that has put their trust in you wholeheartedly, and that's our only option, because that's what we come here with, passion. We don't come here with drama, or we don't come here with bureaucracy. We come here with actual problems. Just listen to every case, and because
the cloud that is over you, it won't just go from 4 to whenever we end. It'll separate. It'll be over your head. Each and every one of you will have a cloud over your head, and it will rain down on you if you don't act like real people and do what real people are supposed to do for other people. God bless.
Thank you so much. Are there any more speakers? I can't see. Are you the last speaker, sir? I'm sorry. We'd love to try to wrap this up so we can get to the cases. So if you could be brief, I'd really appreciate it so we can get to getting to the work at hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, my name is Paul Courier, and I've welcomed you. I've also spoken at the Board of Supervisors to get these hearings televised and put on SF.gov TV. It's critical. That's one of the reasons Supervisor Campos was here earlier. He's going to author that, and he agreed to sponsor that resolution. And so we look forward to seeing more sunshine, even on sunshine. I just wanted to mention, for everybody's benefit, how we got where we're at. Because you may not understand what your charter is. Your charter is from the voters of the people of San Francisco. It's not from the Board of Supervisors or Mayor Ed Lee or the charter and all these. You were created by the voters because we had a problem with the Ethics Commission. And after many decades of getting nothing done at ethics, the Sunshine Ordinance was passed by the voters of San Francisco. That's how we got here. Now, in 12 years, there's only one case that you guys have referred to ethics that's actually made it through ethics for removal of anybody. And that was regarding Jewel Gomez at the Library Commission. And ethics found that that person needed to be removed from office and referred the case upstairs to Mayor Lee. And guess what? Radio silence. The man does nothing. So I know there's a lot of people in San Francisco that support the mayor. I don't. I think he's corrupt. I think it's organized crime. And when someone's referred for removal and the person that's going to remove them is tasked with removal, doesn't do the job, wow. Now you have a lot of frustrated people that come to the Sunshine Commission again and again and again, and the agenda doesn't move properly. So this is where we're at. And I can't speak at how painful it is for someone like George Wooding to have the case heard here and it goes to ethics and nothing happens. It's so painful for people like Pastor Gavin to come here and find charges referred to the San Francisco District Attorney's Office and to the Ethics Commission, and neither of them do anything. So this is where we're at. And welcome to the voters. You know, you'll be seeing a lot of us, so hello.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Ms. Osprey, if you could let me know when I have 30 seconds. Members of the task force, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. I've been actively involved in a lot of boards and commissions and have attended most excuse me, of the task force meetings for the last 4 years. And when I go to a board meeting, I tell them there are two things that I believe that I'm there for. It is to monitor whether or not citizens are allowed to meaningfully participate in the meetings and allowed to make public comment. Also, that they are allowed access to public records, because often if you're going to effectively address any public issue, you often have to have access to the records necessary to do so. I believe that because I'm a Navy veteran. When I took the oath of office, it was a really transformative experience for me, where I raised my hand and I swore to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, just as you all did earlier this evening. I realized at that moment that it was an oath that I would never be able to put down. And I believe in Voltaire's comment, which is, I may not agree with what a man has to say, but I will defend to the death his right to say it. One of the things you need to be aware of is the problems that you come into. I also taught management for the University of Hawaii for 14 years. And one of the things I taught people was managers can effectively sabotage a person's success by giving them jobs and then simply denying the resources that they need to do the job. And unfortunately, this task force has in prior years, and you will be at least for a while, sabotaged in that way. I put in an immediate disclosure request to the city attorney when Ernie Laurenti was the DCA to this task force. It took me 7 months to get the answers, and we found out that at that time he got 7 hours a week total to deal with Sunshine. And by the time someone
30 seconds.
previously said you attend the meetings, that doesn't leave much else. And the previous administrator for the task force, I don't want to, be nasty to him, but he didn't have the skills or time or whatever resources he needed to do the job there either. So if you're going to do a job, one of the things you're going to have to confront is the very board of supervisors who appointed you has never taken a referral from this task force and asked on it, and they have always denied you the resources that are needed to do the job.
Thank you.
To the task force, my name is Cephas Johnson. I'm the uncle of Oscar Grant, and thank you. First, I come here not really knowledgeable of what your specific task is, but what I've heard since I've been sitting here appears to be a total confusion on whether you really can help my dear friend who I'm here to support, and that is Danica Chapman, and of course her brother Marco, concerning Kenneth Harding. So all I can do at this moment is just share something from my heart. As a person that have experienced the loss of a loved one at the hands of the police, one of the things that we ask is many questions or even information. And what pains me about their case is the fact that they've asked for a death certificate. They've asked for the video surveillance cameras that actually showed the actual shooting. I'm not sure what your jurisdiction is, but there's much pain when a family cannot get simple questions asked. I see this as an opportunity for this family to use this body in ways that can assist them in ways can help alleviate the pain that they're suffering by being denied the information that they request. To me, and I'm not sure if you can work with the Freedom of Information Act or you can actually get this information, but it is my hope that you hear this family and their request and that you consider what you can truly do to assist them in getting the answers that they need, specifically a death certificate. The loss of a loved one and being denied that right, or the autopsy to their child, is extremely painful. So it's my hope that you understand that you're here to assist the citizens of this community in regards to issues concerning that. You're a body here, and it's my hope that you can become an avenue for others that may experience the same. I know the pain, and it's devastating, and I hope that you are people that are willing to help resolve and ease that suffering and the pain that the family experienced. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Oh, it's never. I'll have some remarks after the public speakers are done.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to say that our ex officio member, Angela Calvillo, is always welcome here, always was, and I'm so delighted to see her here, and delighted that the meetings are on Wednesday nights now rather than on Tuesdays so that she can attend, because there's a lot that happens here, and a lot of it bears on what happens around the rest of City Hall. So welcome, and I hope we see a lot of you. I want to talk a little bit about the ordinance, and I had the pleasure of serving on a committee called San Franciscans for Sunshine, who wrote the ordinance, and I got to sit around Angela Aliotto's great big conference table with icons like Bruce Brugman and Rick Nee, and as we wrote the ordinance. One of the problems that we left for the very last was the appointing authority. Who would appoint the members to this body? It was a big decision, and we couldn't make it. We couldn't make it. We had three choices. Either it would be the mayor, who was Willie Brown, and that was not going to happen. Never, never, never. Or we had different department heads, but we thought there'd be a lot of conflict of interest if we have various department heads making appointments. So then we decided it had to be the Board of Supervisors, because we thought there would be less interference from the Board of Supervisors in the membership of this task force. Less interference was what we were aiming at. One of the reasons we thought there would be less interference was because we had the newly instituted district elections, and we had the election of people who didn't have to spend a lot of money to get into office and who we thought would be there to fight for the people. Well, it doesn't seem to be happening. One of the reasons that we instituted the 4 seats by appointing organizations, that is the Society for the Professional Journalists, the League of Women Voters, the New California Media. The reason that we decided that this would at least alleviate the problem of interference somewhat from the Board of Supervisors if we had these seats. Those are seats that have been there for 13 years. I hope that the Board of Supervisors will uphold them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have a couple more.
Hi, I'm Peter Warfield again, Library Users Association. So little time and so many things to say. First of all, congratulations on your chair and vice chair selections. And I would ask, as a point of personal privilege, if I were here, for a comfort break for the public, which has been sitting here for more than 2 hours, perhaps 5 or 10 minutes after this item. I have a couple of housekeeping questions. The agenda shows that the ex officio seats are both vacant, and while I'm charmed to see Angela Calvillo, the clerk of the board, sitting there, I'm curious whether that seat has been appointed or what's going on with that. I'm curious also how the agenda was created, and that leads into, for tonight, and that leads into my concern about a whole range of issues about where the task force stands, and I think that you might consider for future, to do soon, a kind of housekeeping status, because, for example, at the Compliance and Amendments Committee meeting, the Arts Commission, on our complaint, the committee found the Arts Commission in willful violation and said that this should be referred to the full task force for referral to the Ethics Commission, but it's not on today's agenda. Likewise, there have been long delays in getting complaints onto the agenda here, and that's a really serious problem. There are other issues of follow-up and backlog. Before the time runs out, I want to say that you may have noticed there's a tremendous, and I would certainly emphasize, you have tremendous value. If you could let me know when 30 seconds remain. You have
23 seconds.
There's tremendous value in the public that comes before you, people with tremendous knowledge and experience, and I hope that you tap that and ask them. You have a big job ahead of you. I hope you do it conscientiously. It's a lot of work and a lot of time. And I certainly hope that, as Mr. David did, you'll ask questions and feel free to comment to the public in a limited way, which you can discuss with your city attorney, but you're not required to just keep your lips zipped when the public speaks and you have either a question or a helpful suggestion or referral. Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no more public comments, I know it's been a long time. Are you coming, ma'am? Great. Thank you. If you could manage to talk for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I'd love to try to get everyone to have a break after this. Thank you.
Hello to all. My name is Danica Chapman. I'm the mother of Kenneth Harding Jr. He was killed on July 16th by San Francisco Police Department over allegedly evading a $2 muni transit fare. I'm here because I would like to request for the videotapes to be released. That's crucial evidence in a crime of murder, and it will help me to pursue criminal charges. So I'm here as a mother who is grieving and wants to know what happened to her 19-year-old son that would cause the police to shoot him down viciously over a $2 bus fare. So if you guys can please help me with this, I've been sitting here patiently waiting for you guys to get to number 12. I understand you guys want to go to break, but that's what we're here for. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry for your loss as well. Jerry. We'd like to.
I think the people are definitely outraged, and I think.
Can you say your name, please?
They call me Charles Pitts. I am Charles Pitts.
Charles.
Pitts.
Great.
The middle name Rosavelt.
Great. Thank you.
It's a special spelling, so make sure you get it right. Mama be offended. I think the problem is like I've been waiting for my hearing to come up, and it's been like nearly 4 months. So I'm wondering when that's going to happen. And I think the other problem that I have is I believe your goal is to understand the Brown Act and the Freedom of Information Act, and then clearly make a decision based on those things. And I'm really hoping that you will take those tasks seriously and definitely understand that there is a problem with our government and the way it functions and the way it continuously abuses its citizens, and to consider the citizens who pay the taxes, who builds the government. When I'm almost out. Yeah.
May we have quiet in the audience, please?
It's cool. It's cool.
Thank you.
I just think that you are the people just as I am the people. And I am hoping that you'll understand the Brown Act and the Freedom of Information Act and apply those documents correctly along with your bylaws. So I want to have some faith in you and what you're doing when you're making these decisions. So we're being severely abused on several fronts, physically, financially. It's just continuous, and I want you to consider, if you were in these people's shoes, what would you like, and what would the laws say? Not what the Board of Supervisors or Ed Lee or anything say. The thing about it also is the people before you, they did what was right for the most part, and that cost them. But maybe you'll make the decision that'll be right for us.
Thank you so much. Anyone else for any more public comments? So what I'd like to do is close the public comments, and I would like to try to take a 5-minute break. Before that, I would like to see if I could amend points, rearrange the order actually, from points number, where were we, 4 through 9, and go straight to 10 so we can get to the files and start making some real decisions and helping people. Is that a possibility? I can't move it to later on?
To the chair and the members, the order of the agenda is up to the chair and the task force. The agenda has been set. Currently, if you want to move the agenda around, you need the acquiescence of your colleagues.
So I would like to make a motion that we move agenda items number 4 through 9 and move those to later after 19.
I will second for discussion purposes. I will second for discussion purposes.
Thank you. So let's discuss. Yes, discussion, please.
Yeah, I would separate out item 7 from that. The reason I say that is that this is a matter that was raised during the appointments process by members of the Board of Supervisors. This has to do with our passage of substantive motions, and so this dealing with how we deal with this tonight will affect how we deal with substantive motions going forward. So I would separate that out from items 4 through 9.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
So I would certainly like to echo what Member Nee has presented to us as a task force, because I also truly feel that item number 7 is quite crucial, something that I had concerns with also when it was presented among all of us as the previous task force before this one. And I think it's very important that we discuss this and take this quite seriously, as of course colleagues on this task force I'm sure would certainly agree.
Okay. Yes.
I would also agree that item number 7 should be separated out from the group of items, but I also believe number 4 is somewhat similar in that it's a item for discussion about the makeup of this task force. So it's a fundamental issue that's I believe should be discussed up front as well.
Any other comments, please?
I have a question about number 4, because I also think it's an important issue. But my question is that, is that something appropriate for us as the task force to be? It seems like that's an appointing issue, as opposed to at the end of the day, if we all agree on something, right, what can we do about it, right? It just seems like an issue that's for the body that appoints members to the task force. So I don't know. Is that I'm asking the question in general. Yeah. I don't know exactly to whom.
Through the chair, Member David, to answer that question would actually be to take up the agenda item. I said to answer that, your question would be actually to take up discussion of the agenda item itself, and it's a very involved discussion. I'm happy to do that if that's the desire of the task force, but it seems like this is a procedural motion on whether to put it off till later or to take it up now.
Okay. So let's continue with our comments, and then we'll come back to that.
I am in support of the motion to defer items 4 through 9. I just wanted to comment very briefly. I think item 7 absolutely is important, and we should talk about that. We will get to that in the fullness of time, but I think at a minimum, all we can do is start to initiate a bylaws change tonight. We can't actually change the bylaws tonight, so I think we are covered by the bylaws that currently exist, and we can talk about that in greater depth under item 7. And with respect to item 4, I believe that also is an involved discussion, but I don't think, and maybe my specific question to our Deputy City Attorney is whether item 4 is a showstopper such that we can't take any further action tonight, or whether we can have a reasonable discussion about item 4 and after having heard cases. So if that's in fact the case, which I think, then I think we're fine to defer 4 through 9, but that's a specific question to Jerry on whether we can proceed.
Madam Chair, a couple of things. First of all, Member Calvillo has been raising her hand. I think she'd like to say something, but I also have a question for our City Attorney regarding item 7 and the issue that Member Pilpel raised. Item 7 is described as a possible action item. So could we make a motion tonight? Would it be appropriate to make a motion tonight to revise that particular bylaw, or would we have to wait until next month?
Through the chair to Member Nee, you could make a motion to revise the bylaw, but the actual language of any proposed bylaw amendment would have to be made public, and there would be a period of time where you would have to wait so the public could review that language and then weigh in at a later meeting.
Thank you.
Could you address my concern about item 4, and then we can hear from...
Through the chair to Member Pilpel, my answer is basically the same as it was to Member David. If we'd like to take this matter up, it's an involved discussion. There's not an easy, quick answer to it. I'm happy to do that if it's the desire of the task force, but I think the decision with the task force is whether they want to take it up now or they would like to take it up later.
So you are saying that we could take it up later?
We can take it up later and move forward on the files at hand. That's what we were at.
That's my question.
Then we're going to get into the substance of the matter. If you'd like me to address it, I'm happy to do so. Is that the desire of the task force?
We'd like to take the matter up later if it will not impede our being able to vote, or to not vote, but to make decisions on the files from number 10 to really get into the file that people are here for. That's our question.
Well, the question in that item...
in number 4?
So procedurally, this is difficult because you're asking to have a substantive discussion of the item when the item has not been called on the agenda. So you really should take it up if you want me to discuss it.
Madam Chair, can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
I'm sorry if the public, can you hear me? I'm Angela Calvillo, the ex officio member on this committee. My position does not count towards quorum, nor can I vote, but I can provide some information on item 4. I won't do it until the item is called, but I think the information that I have could dispense with the matter in the event that Deputy City Attorney Jerry Threet found that it was sufficient for us to then continue till a later conversation, whether it's tonight or the next meeting. But it is your call.
So we would love
to take the item up.
We would love
it
to
be a
take the item
momentary
up.
Briefing.
We would love to get
Okay.
to take the item up.
Okay. Then you would have the clerk call the item.
Will you
So before we do that...
wait, so for number 4. But I guess we have a motion first.
First, sure.
So, Madam
Can
Chair?
I amend it?
Yeah, Madam Chair, if it's in order, I was going to suggest that we defer items 5 through 9 and make that as a friendly amendment to the motion that's before us, then take up item 4, take a break, and then come back to item 10.
Second accepts. Does the
Motion's
maker
back.
accept?
Say it again.
Does the second accepts? Does the maker accept?
I accept it.
Without objection.
So, is there a discussion?
I just want to make sure. So that means we're not going to, we're once again, we're not going to deal with item 7. We're not taking that out of the, we're now just talking, I just want to make sure I understand what we're talking about. We're talking about moving forward to discuss item 4, and then moving 5 through 9 to later. And
Yes.
not pulling 7 out of that 5 through 9.
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you. Just want to make sure I understand. Thank you.
Okay. So it would be Angela? If you could.
No, we need
Right.
to vote on...
To call
Are we
we need-
voting? Okay.
Vote on
Have to
this or
vote on
without objection?
It was a friendly.
It was a friendly amendment accepted by the second. There's no vote is required. It's now time for discussion for the members, or if there's no discussion by the members, you can take public comment.
So I'd like to hear a discussion from Angela.
Madam Chair, are you?
For point number 4 that we were talking about earlier.
Okay. All right.
Correct?
So then the task force has decided to.
The motion on the floor is to move items 5 through, was it 9?
9. 5 through
To
9.
later in the meeting. That's the motion on the floor. There has to be a vote on that motion. There can be discussion on the motion, and there can also be public comment on the motion.
Madam Chair, I would suggest that In the absence of further discussion on the motion, we take public comment on the motion.
And I'm going to limit this to 1 minute. Can I?
Yeah.
Just 1 minute so we can move quickly to get this.
Madam Chair, this item, this particular point has come up many times. For procedural motions, there's no requirement that public comment be taken, but it may be taken.
One minute, please.
Thank you.
Public comment.
So I believe that you should also separate out 7 and keep it right where it belongs on the agenda. Because I have a hearing loss, I'm not quite sure that I heard Mr. David correctly. That if he alluded to the fact of going back to your appointing authority and asking questions about process, those days are over. If you had indicated that you might want to check with your appointing authority on procedural issues, you are independent of them now. You are totally...
You did not hear me correctly, so that's not what I said.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that, because you are an independent body.
Thank you.
I want to understand the motion. Are you going to defer the hearings tonight on items 5 through 9?
To later in the...
Until the end of all of the complaint hearings?
Yes.
Can I suggest, since that item is number 7 is pretty important, that you just simply continue it to the next meeting? Because it's very involved, it's somewhat complicated, and I think a lot of us have invested a lot in it, and therefore, even if you get it in before 11, and I'm not sure you would, I really think that you would lose the benefit of that. Thank you.
Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government, and I would concur with the prior speaker. The issue of the number of votes necessary to pass a motion is moot because the fact you have enough members here that you can get the sufficient votes to pass the motion, and it isn't necessary for a complainant or a respondent in either case to get all of the members, and that was the issue that resulted in the original change. If you only had 6 members, as I said earlier, the complainant had to get all 6 votes, which was a really high hurdle to cover. So basically, you can hear the cases tonight and still come to conclusions which are legal under either the old laws or the new, or the old bylaws or the new bylaws, and still satisfy the requirements.
Peter Warfield, I would concur with Mr. Grossman's suggestion. The item 7 is extremely important for the reasons that I think you've heard, but basically that will determine how, let me back up a moment, how the rules are set for a determination to be made or not made is vitally important for each and every member of the public, certainly who comes before you, and of course the respondents. In the past, I certainly have been hamstrung by votes such as 5-2. You have 11 appointees, there's a vacancy, somebody's out sick, somebody's traveling, and pretty soon you've got 8, then 7, somebody has to go home and take care of a kid, and now you've got a bare quorum of 6. For the members of the public to have to get 6 votes out of 6 members to get a determination is almost impossible. And so this is a crucially important matter for you to take up promptly. And of course, it is one of the reasons that you're here and that there has been the bloodbath, and that is because the previous task force made a rule change.
Thank you for your comments.
Howdy. Well, I think just for you to just shift the agenda all around in the middle of the meeting is just not legal. Because it talks about meeting agendas and that you're supposed to give a very clear and precise listings of what's happening. And if you switch everything around, then it's not clear, it's not precise, it's not accurate, and it's on some levels just fraudulent. Because if somebody's number like 20, they know they're going to be on after 8 o'clock. But if you switch it earlier, then they might show up late, or they might miss it all together because they're expecting the item to come up at like 8 o'clock. I mean, some of your meetings go on till like 10, 11 o'clock. So if they're number 22, then they know that they should be here around
Thank
10
you.
or 11 o'clock.
Thank you.
So I would like a point of clarification on number 7. So if we wait till later in the night to deal with number 7, right? Or as one of the speakers recommended that we suspend it till the next meeting. Does that mean that if we suspended it till the next meeting, that whatever vote we would eventually take on that would not go into effect until the following meeting? Like if we don't deal with that issue tonight and vote on it tonight, or whatever the steps, are we just deferring it for a couple of more meetings to get the actual result?
Sir?
Through the chair, it doesn't sound like strictly a legal question, but yes.
Okay. So I would like to offer, I don't know if it's a friendly amendment, whatever you want to call it. I'd say that we deal with 4, 7, and then go right to 10 and move the other meetings. 4 is an important issue. 7 is an important issue for the task force, and then we can get right to the cases.
Madam
That
Chair.
would be that would be my recommendation. I don't know if it's a motion, a friendly amendment, whatever you call it.
Mr. Nee?
Well, as Mr. Threed has already pointed out, because specific language has not been proposed for item 7, which would be Article 4, paragraph 7 of our bylaws, section 7 of our bylaws. Because specific language has not been offered tonight, we couldn't vote on it anyway. So I am fully in favor of the motion as it stands, moving back items 5 through 9.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to item 7, we can discuss it, or we can continue it at that time when we get to it later on.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
Right. Madam Clerk, can we take a vote?
Member Nee?
Aye.
Member Nee, aye. Member Monet?
Pass.
Member Monet passes. Member Washburn?
Aye.
Member Washburn, aye. Member Pilpel?
Aye.
Member Pilpel, aye. Member David?
Aye.
Member David, aye. Member Highland?
Aye.
Member Highland, aye. Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Fisher, aye. Member Monet?
Aye.
Member Monet, aye. Chair Grant?
Aye.
Chair Grant, aye. You have 8 ayes. Motion passes.
So the motion passes. At this time, we'd like to take a 5-minute break and then come back, deal with issue number 4, and then go straight to our filings. Thank you so much. I do. Okay. What am I just going to say? Order?
Yeah, we have enough for quorum, so.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. So let's continue where we left off. And that was
Item number 4, I believe.
Item number 4, determine compliance with Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.30A.
Will you read it? Are you going to read it, or?
Madam Chair.
Are you going to read the entire?
She just did.
Oh, you just read. Okay. So we were going to get a bit of an explanation on that point from Madam Calvillo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the audience, I hope you can hear me. Thank you. I would like to just provide a little bit of information just to catch everyone up to date. When the Rules Committee met on, I think it was May 17th, the Rules Committee determined that they had made appointments, but that Section 6730 had required that at all times the task force shall include at least one member who shall be a member of the public, who is physically handicapped and who has demonstrated interest in citizen access and participation in local government. And that they had determined that none of those seats that they had forwarded to the board for approval fulfilled this requirement. So what the chair had suggested is that the vacant positions that remained, there would be a letter sent to the three organizations. And the first is the Society of Professional Journalists, the New America Media, and the third is the League of Women Voters of San Francisco, to request that they submit additional nominees to the nominees they had already forwarded, and that they would consider fulfilling this 6730 section of the admin code to make sure that the nominees could have could have considered when they're forwarding their nominees that the individual was a member of the ADA community. To date, that is where we're at right now. We're waiting for those nominees to come forward from those organizations. And DCA 3, that was the information that I wanted to provide you so that you could then start the conversation with the members of the task force, knowing that that's where we currently stand.
Member Pilpel, I generally concur with that. I would just amend that briefly to indicate that the Rules Committee at the May 17th meeting actually forwarded out the name of former Member Wolf, and it was at the full task force that former Member Wolf was replaced by Member David. So at the time when former Member Wolf was recommended out, he did qualify for that seat. I believe that the board, in substituting, still found, whether it was fully articulated or not, that by continuing to have a vacancy in seat 1 and holdovers in seats 2, 4, and 5, that the qualification under 67.30A will be met with one of those appointees. So it's a minor edit to your reconstruction.
Thank you, Member Pilpel.
So our question to you, will that affect us moving forward this evening in addressing the different filings?
Through the chair to the members of the task force, this agenda item really presents two distinct issues that are related, and I'll just say what those issues are and then try to move through an analysis of them. The first one is whether the task force may meet and take action without at least one member who is physically handicapped without violating the ordinance. And the second is whether, assuming that there is a violation of the ordinance, that violation would deprive the task force of the authority to otherwise take official action. So on the first issue, it's important to look at the exact language in question. And there's several key phrases. It says, at all times, the task force shall include at least one member who is physically handicapped. At all times is a rather unusual and forceful requirement. It appears to indicate that the intent of this is to ensure that there is never a gap when someone who is physically handicapped is not a member of this task force. And that interpretation is bolstered by the language that it says at least one member shall be a member who is physically handicapped. So, in light of that very strong language, it would appear that there is a requirement that at all times there be a member with physical handicap who is seated as a member of the task force. Now, I want to just be clear that there could be another view. This is my view. There could be another view, and that view would be supported by questions such as, what would happen? Could this be the intent of the voters when that situation could create problems for the task force acting if, for instance, there's one member with a physical handicap and that member resigned before a meeting? That would deprive the body of the presence of a required member. But I think that and in addition, there's another provision in the ordinance that requires that when a member of the public petitions the task force for a determination whether a record is public, that determination has to be issued within 45 days. So there's a time clock ticking at all times on these complaints. So again, the question would arise, did the voters intend for this requirement to truly mean at all times, when it would put the task force potentially in violation of one or the other of those provisions? And I think the way that this can be properly viewed and they can be reconciled is that it's incumbent upon the appointing authority, the Board of Supervisors, to ensure that whenever a vacancy occurs that deprives the task force of a member with a physical handicap, that appointment be made quickly and as expeditiously as possible. Now, it certainly appears that the Board of Supervisors is attempting to resolve that issue expeditiously, but that doesn't resolve the question for now. So it is my opinion that currently the task force is seated without such a member and is in violation of 67.30 of the ordinance. So then we move on to the second question. And the second question, unfortunately, is a little more difficult. It might seem intuitively that if you're in violation of that section of the ordinance, then the task force would not have the authority to act, but it's my belief that that's not the case. Now, I'm not saying that the task force should nevertheless continue to take official acts tonight. There's nothing that requires that you do so. In continuing to sit and act tonight, you will continue to be, in my view, in violation of 6730. But there are several principles that would provide that if you had acted, even though you're in violation of 6730, that the acts would nevertheless be valid. And one of those is one consideration is the fact that, as I said previously, 6721 requires that the task force make a determination within 45 days of being petitioned whether a document is a public record or not. That also is very strong support in the language of the task force. And there's generally, in the common law, a rule of necessity that says that a government must be able to act. And this rule has been applied in several cases where there's an apparent or real conflict of interest, and an official nevertheless is allowed to vote on a matter in which they have a conflict because their vote is necessary to resolve it. And similarly, there's several cases where a member of a body who's an official member of a commission or a board of supervisors is found not to have been qualified for that office, and the board took action and needed the presence of that member to have a quorum to make that action official and valid. And even though they were not qualified and therefore would not legally be officially a member of that body, the fact that they acted under color of law was held to be sufficient to make the act valid. And this is called the de facto officer principle. And there are several cases that hold that that these are valid acts, even though one of the members may not have the qualifications that are necessary. And that principle would appear to be even stronger here because the requirement that we're discussing is a requirement that doesn't rest with any particular seat on the task force. It's not assigned to seat one or any particular seat. It's just a requirement that some person on this task force be a member with a physical disability. So that, in summary, is my advice. And there's another, I'm sorry, I neglected to mention one other thing. There's also a series of cases that were interpreting the Brown Act and violations of the Brown Act. And one of those cases also, it was a San Francisco case, and the question before the court was the violation of the Brown Act, did it make the acts taken at the time, I believe it was a commission that acted in violation of the Brown Act, did it invalidate the action of those commissions? The court found that because the Brown Act at that time did not include an enforcement provision that said, if you violate this provision, the act is invalid, the court found that because that was absent from the statute, the Brown Act at that time was a directory statute and not a mandatory statute, and therefore, even though there was a violation of that statute, the act that was taken in violation was still valid. And the Sunshine Ordinance, similarly, has no enforcement provision that says if you act in violation of this ordinance, then that act is invalid. So this is true for all the provisions of the ordinance, and that case is called Stribring. And so it is my advice that that the task force, because it does not have a member with a physical handicap, is in violation of 6730 of the ordinance. The task force, if it wishes to avoid continuing to violate the ordinance, could terminate the meeting and move on.
Member Propel?
Was there any good news there?
Yeah.
I guess there was at the end with the conclusion, but I appreciate the discussion, and I suspect we will have some discussion about this. All of these principles, statutory construction, rule of necessity, de facto officer, directory laws, and where the presumptions fall, and kind of weighing all of this. We've been through a number of these issues before. They are complicated, and I'm, not a lawyer, although others would. Never mind. I think I disagree at the beginning with the view that the task force must at all times, and if the body doesn't, that we are in violation. I think I lean toward the view that it's up to the appointing officer to appoint, and so long as there is at least one vacancy or a holdover appointment, that one of those positions is being held for purpose of meeting this requirement in addition to meeting the basic requirement for that seat, and so long as that is being diligently pursued by the board, that the task force may continue to meet and exercise its other powers. And so I am essentially persuaded that we are not in violation of the ordinance as a body and can act at this time, understanding that the board is engaged in filling the other 4 seats. But I'm open to discussion, and I'm sure there will be, public comment.
Member Nee?
Yeah, a lot of things. This is very complex. One of the obviously it's it is of concern that we have a member of the disabled community. I mean, the disabled have many of their own issues, like when a person who is hard of hearing, or a person who is sight disabled, or has vision problems, wants public information, and they can't get it, and they come before the task force. We need to have somebody who understands their problems, who can look from their viewpoint to help render a fair judgment on whether their rights under sunshine have been violated. At the same time, tonight we are without somebody from the disabled community, and we have 10 complaints before us. And there's the old adage of justice delayed being justice denied, and that too is of great concern. I would also address through the chair this question, and through Ms. Calvillo, I would address this question to the Board of Supervisors. There is no guarantee that the three organizations, Society of Professional Journalists, League of Women Voters, and New America Media, will be able to find somebody who meets their specific qualifications that they have established for service on the task force, who is also disabled. And the board has to ask itself then, if no person is nominated who fits into the disabled category, what is the board going to do then? The board then has to take it back under consideration. As far as tonight goes, the city attorney, I believe, has Deputy City Attorney Threed has told us that we could move forward with tonight's agenda and do so legally, and particularly given the number of cases we have before us, if there are no strenuous objections, I'd like to see that happen.
Are there any more comments from a member of the task force?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is just, a balancing. I think this is a balancing issue, right? I mean, I think, with all due respect to Member Pilpel, I think that, it's fairly clear from the city deputy superintendent's point of view that we are in violation of not having a person who's physically challenged at all times, and that has to be balanced against the public's interest to have their issues brought before us and be heard in a timely manner. And, I think it puts us, kind of in a difficult situation. I'm in favor of making sure that, we're here to do the public's work and that we should move forward and hear the cases. And, I would, encourage the Board of Supervisors to really, work quickly and judiciously to try to find, qualified people that fit this, that fit what we need. So that's what my thoughts are.
Any other members? Comments? We're not taking public comments right now. If we could just try to figure this out so we can move forward, I appreciate it. Thank you. So what I think we should do is take a vote on this and make a motion to vote on Amendment 4, correct?
Are you making a motion?
Can I make the motion? No.
Through the chair to the members and the chair, if there is a motion, you may take it. If there's not a motion, then you may take public comment.
I'd like to make a motion to move forward and hear the public's filings.
I second.
We'd like to take a...
If there's no discussion at this time, you can take public comment on the motion.
Okay. I'd like to take public comment with 1 minute.
1 minute,
Yes, please.
Chair, is insulting to people with disabilities. There is no balancing test, Mr. David, for people who have disabilities under the ADA. There is no balancing test provision in the Sunshine Ordinance. One of you needs to make a motion to support the Sunshine Ordinance as it currently is written, that you cannot act without a member who meets this requirement. Supervisor Wiener, Mr. Wiener, made a huge tactical error when he chose to remove Mr. Wolf, because none of the applications showed that there was any applicants who had a disability. And I believe Ms. Cavillo was absolutely wet and in the water to suggest that aggressively sending letters to the three appointing agencies somehow rises to meeting this. This is preposterous. There is no requirement that they have to submit any further names. They've already done their job. They sent names to the supervisors,
Thank you,
and
sir.
Mr. Wiener chose to ignore it. You should ethically decide you cannot violate the Sunshine Ordinance in the absence of having a disabled member on this body. As somebody
Thank
who
you,
is
sir.
disabled by hearing, I am insulted by this action.
Thank you for your comments.
There you go. Thank you. Okay. Zoom out.
Turn on our screen.
Okay, so I've got a little glare on there, but I kind of reformatted 6730 so it reads a little clearer as to who the members are. Okay, I didn't change the context. I just put it in bullet format to separate each member. I want you to take a notice. And this is, I don't know why it keeps going in and out of focus, but if you look at the last sentence of that first paragraph, it says all members must have experience and demonstrated an interest in the issues, and so on. And then you have the 2 members from the Society of Professional Journalists. You have 1 member from Press Electronic Media. You have 1 member from the League of Women Voters. Then you have 4 members shall be members of the public. And then you have 2 members shall be members of the public. Those specifically are for consumer advocacy. And then you have 1 member who shall be a journalist from the New American Media, which is now what it's called. And then you go into, at all times, the task force shall include at least 1 member who shall be a member of the public. Member of the public. And it is specified in that, and I would appreciate a little extra time because this is, DCA 3 is being very specific about language, and he has been all meeting, and I appreciate that because we're trying to follow the letter of the law. So let's follow the letter of the law. A member of the public is not a member of the Society of Professional Journalists. They are not a member of any of those other organizations, which is why the ordinance specifies them, those 6 seats, to be members of the public. So when it says at all times, task force shall include at least 1 member who shall be a member of the public, it applies to those 6 any one of those 6 seats. Okay? This is not for my benefit. This is for your benefit and for my interest to make sure that this body is the exquisite example of sunshine for the entire city family and in sending that message out to the entire city and the voters. Okay?
Thank you so much. Okay.
Members of the task force, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. And bottom line is Mr. Wiener and Mr. Farrell were in such a hurry to get rid of members that instead of just saying, let's hold Mr. Mr. Wolf over until such time as we have a qualified candidate, they decided, no, we want to get rid of him, and they substituted Mr. David, which, nothing against you, but the bottom line was they were more interested in taking that retribution than they were following the law. And I'm really tired of the city attorney's office doing something that says, oh, let's ignore what the law actually says and give ourselves permission to do something it doesn't say. And how long are we going to allow this to happen? Are you going to go 6 meetings, 8 meetings, 10 meetings? And if the Board of Supervisors just takes their own sweet time, which they usually do, to get around to appointing someone with a disability, how many cases are going to come before this board who have people who are disabled who are then going to say to you, this is not legal?
Thank you. No, we said we were going to vote, talk about this conversation, and then go to the filings, because this affects what we're going to be doing to try to, that's what we're trying to do right now. So.
My name is Antonio Mims. I spoke earlier. I just wanted to, go over as far as language. I don't think you're in violation of anything. It says at all times, one of these members, what was we talking? A disabled member must be included in the task force. If that member has not been appointed, yeah. Wait. Y'all don't have a disabled person appointed?
That's the discussion right now. We don't. So if we move ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Doing the
Well, I
file-
still support that we should move ahead.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you.
For sure.
That's what we're kind of trying to decide right now. If we do decide that we are in violation and we don't move ahead, these cases will not be heard tonight. So we are trying to solve that issue right now, legally.
Dr. Derek Kerr, it was pretty appalling to see the rush to get rid of Bruce Wolf. And then later, somebody realized that they needed a person with a physical disability in that seat. And the Sunshine Ordinance does separate the professional groups from the public citizens. And the disabled person comes from the public citizen group, not from the professional group. This is all appalling.
Doctora Maria Rivero, I worked for the city for 22 years before I was pressured out of my job when I became a whistleblower using the Sunshine Ordinance and public records to return $350,000 to the patients of Laguna Honda. And I agree, this is completely appalling. I am also a partially disabled person, and this is wrong. You had a qualified candidate, and he was pulled out of it by the Board of Supervisors. Put Bruce Wolf back on this task force. Thank you very much.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association. First of all, I'd like, since there are so many new members, to say that you do not have to follow the advice of your own attorney. And in fact, the task force has a long history of not following the attorney's advice or even going exactly contrary to the attorney's advice. And in at least one fairly recent case, either intending to send or sending a letter to the city attorney's office saying that they should not advise people in a certain way about certain laws. You have your own authority to interpret and to act. As a previous speaker or more said, the supervisors, in their mad rush to decimate this task force, paid no attention to the clear wording of the law. It's very clear. Look at the words, read the words. And now it seems to me you should not allow them to just simply now do double talk legally with the city attorney to make the words mean something entirely different
than
sir. What
the clear language says.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Misha Monke-Ilisari, since I was made aware today that there are still 2 vacancies on this body, I will pick up an application at the city clerk tomorrow. I'm disabled. I have both physical and a psychiatric disability, PTSD because of the murder of my son, but I had PD 10 years ago. And I do a lot of political work. I'm a city commissioner, and I'm also a press member. I've been working for San Francisco Bayview.com for the past 10 years, so please expect to review my application.
Thank you. So are there, after all of this, I'd like to ask the members of the task force if there's any comment. Member Nee?
Here's my thought for the moment. There are a number of people here tonight, and the reason they're here is that they are parties in interest to complaints that we have on our agenda. I think it would be unfair to them if we did not hear. However, at the same time, I would also recommend that we put the Board of Supervisors on notice that the task force will not hold any more meetings after this until there is a disabled person appointed to this body.
Member Patel?
I'm becoming a little more conflicted on this than I had intended, but life is complicated. Question to Member Nee and possibly to former Member Wolf. Do you recall, since this was a section that was amended with Prop G in 1999, this was not an original section from the 1993 ordinance, as I recall. Since 99, from the appointments in, I guess, 2000, 02, 4, 6, 8, and 10, other than Member Wolf, who served for 4 years or 6 years? Since 2005. For the 5 years prior to that, and you were sitting in a consumer advocate, you were in seat 6 or 7? 8. Like I said, 8. Were the other members who served and met this qualification requirement in seats 6 through 11 exclusively? I don't
recall.
I don't specifically recall. Could I ask
You
through the
know,
chair
it's a
to Member
valid
Wolf?
question, perhaps, but I just don't recall.
Okay. Could I ask through the chair to Member Wolf if he has some recollection on this? Because this is helping to inform discussion.
I went back and looked through the minutes to make sure of that, and the person who I replaced was a person with a physical disability. He didn't serve that long, but he had an illness that I think he had to resign because of, and I came in the middle of the summer.
Was that Member Johnson?
I'm sorry?
Was that Member Johnson? Doyle Johnson?
Doyle Johnson.
I don't remember,
Okay.
but it's in the minutes.
Okay.
And so that's why I bring it up, because there has been consistency all the way
In
through.
that seat. And do you recall who preceded him?
Bob Planthold.
Yeah, but there was a break.
I don't know. I didn't go back that far. I thought there was just one person that served after Bob Planthold and then me. But either way, for the majority of the time since the inception of this body, there has always been a person with a disability.
No,
so that's...
I didn't want to get
Okay.
into a debate. I just am trying to figure out if it runs with seats 6 through 11 or if it runs with seats 1 through 11.
Oh yeah,
That's
it was
what
always,
I'm trying to work
yeah,
through.
It was always it was always one of those, the 6 through 11 seats. It was never one of the
Okay, I'm just trying
seats.
to think through
Thank you.
that. Okay.
If I could ask the city attorney a quick question. Has this happened before? It sounds like there was some discontinuity in having a handicapped person.
Through the chair, I don't know the answer to that question.
Attorney was here.
Member David?
Yep. So I would like to kind of take what Member Nee said and maybe add just a little bit of a spin to it. I think that we should, for the people who are here and, to have their cases heard, I think we should move forward. I would, ask the members of the public who are here to have their cases heard if they feel that their case would be better served if it were postponed or delayed till the next meeting where we have a member on the task force who is physically handicapped, that they ask to do so. So this way, the members who want to have their cases heard tonight, I say, come forward and we'll do what we can. And the members of the public who feel that there's not being served adequately by the current board because of this lack of a member, then ask to have your case postponed until.
No.
And so anyway,
wait.
you know what? I'm going to talk and let's have, I
Yes,
think
there
people
is.
shouting out from the audience is not appropriate. And so that would be, if there's a motion that can be made in that way, I will leave it to people who have served on the board before because they have more experience in making motions than I do. But that would be my suggestion.
I believe Member Manat had it.
Thank you so much. So, sort of a couple comments ago, I wanted to specifically just add a note of clarification to Member Pilpel's question, and that is with regards to whether or not a member of the disabled community was on seats 1 through 11 or 6 through 11. And Member Doyle Johnson, who was exiting right when I sort of began the task force just about 2.5 years ago, was 100%, to my recollection, on seats 6 through 11 and not part of the organization authority named seats, just for that clarification.
Do you have a question? Yes, Member Pilpel.
So to Deputy City Attorney Threet, in thinking through this a little bit and looking more carefully at the language, is it your current view, if you can express an opinion, whether the requirement runs with seats 6 through 11 or 1 through 11? I mean, essentially, is a member appointed from the organizations, are they also a member of the public with demonstrated interest and or experience in the topic, or are they not? That's sort of where I am.
Through the chair, I'll have to tell you that this is not a matter that I've considered prior to now, and I would be reluctant to issue an off-the-cuff opinion about it without considering it very fully. I think the members of the task force could, at this point, probably consider that issue as well as I could.
Any more comments? If there,
I guess then on the motion, which is to move forward, on balance, I guess I'm still persuaded, regardless of how you get there, that we should proceed, that it would work a manifest injustice not to, and that in the event that our action somehow is declared void by a court, then we would go back and revisit it. But in the absence of that we should proceed and get on with the order of the day.
Is there a motion on the floor?
There is.
No.
There was a motion made by Member Grant and seconded by Member David prior to public comment.
What was the motion?
The motion was to move forward and hear the cases. That's what I noted.
Second.
Were we all in this?
I agree. Yes.
Okay.
So
Madam Chair, I'd like to amend the motion. If this is a substitute motion, so be it. But I would like to amend the motion to state that we move forward with tonight's agenda, but that after tonight's regular meeting, there be no further business conducted by this task force or any committee thereof unless and until a disabled member has been appointed.
I would second that as well.
Discuss this?
Would we discuss now?
There's been a motion to amend that's seconded. That is now on the floor, and it's up for discussion.
Would you like?
Yeah, I'm really, Member Fisher here, I'm really torn on this. I completely 100% strongly agree that we should by all means follow the letter and have a physically disabled person on this task force. I completely agree with that, and I hope that we can achieve that. I agreed with 99% of what Member Nee said. The only thing I'm held up on is I don't want to put ourselves in a position where if it doesn't occur by next month, which I sincerely hope it does, I don't want to put ourselves in a position where we cannot move forward. I'm looking at this room full of people that have something to say, and I came here to hear what you have to say. So I just don't want to put ourselves in a legal bind, if you will, where we can't move forward next week.
And I think that's my concern as well, that if we do make decisions on all of these files, what if we do this and then it's legally found not to be valid? So then we are going to find ourselves coming back, and you guys are going to have to come back. I want you guys to be heard and have a definite answer. So that's kind of where my thought process is. So I wanted to throw it out for any other members of the task force.
Excuse me, could we have it quiet in the public section, please?
Let me.
Could we have it
Would love-
quiet in the public section, please?
Member Washburn.
Member Washburn?
I'm just reflecting on how this is a very difficult issue, and it's one of many that this task force has faced over the years, how to be as fair as possible within the letter of the law. And fair meaning the most justice possible for members of the public. That is our charge. So on one level, I fully support what Member Nee is saying, his motion. On the other hand, I'm a realist, and a month, giving this Board of Supervisors a month, given how all the complexities of this, I don't see anything happening. So I worry about other cases in the pipeline not being heard, compliance and amendments not meeting. I mean, there are all kinds of issues there. So right now I'm thinking the best thing to do for the greatest good is to move forward tonight to in some way work with the Board of Supervisors to see that we obtain a member who has a physical disability with all great haste, but continue on. It seems like that any decisions we made would be supported, could not be retracted legally. There seems to be case law for that. So this is really a tough one. And as a member of one of the appointing organizations, I have some other issues that I won't get into as to why I'm still sitting here and somebody else hasn't been appointed. But I don't think I can support Member Nee's motion fully.
If there are no more comments, I'd like to take a vote on, public comment, sorry. 1 minute, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have a comment?
Yeah,
Member Pilpel.
I'm still conflicted about this, and I don't want to give rise to any more of the, thought out there about me and my thinking. But if, and I guess I'm still stuck on this, whether it runs with all of the seats or just 6 through 11. If, in fact, it only runs with seats 6 through 11, and members have been appointed to seats 6 through 11 legally or been appointed, then perhaps one of us has to be disappointed and replaced by someone, et cetera. Whatever.
Could we please have it quiet? We have a bit long, busy agenda tonight.
I get where
Please.
the public's voting on this. But that is messy and complicated legally for the board to go through. And if that's necessary and required, so be it. If not, then not. Perhaps someone, and maybe it's not us that need to have the benefit of written advice on this, but it sounds to me like there are some conflicting principles, and there ought to be some written advice from the city attorney on how to proceed in the future, and that we should limit our choice tonight on whether to proceed tonight and leave the other stuff to a future date and venue. So I'm leaning against the motion, but I'm troubled by the whole issue and how that's before us. And maybe there's no response, but perhaps public comment's the right thing to do.
Were you asking the city attorney?
I'm not sure that there was a question there.
Okay.
You want to, if you feel,
Comment?
If you find it, we'll still be here.
yeah, okay.
Sir, can you please go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As I indicated, I'm deeply offended as a person with a hearing disability myself. This is not negotiable. And the easy solution, without a messy spat at the Board of Soups, is for the last appointed member to simply resign. That could expedite all of this. And the gentlemanly thing to do, Mr. David, would be to resign. So I saw Mr. Dennis Herrera as I was escorting Mr. Wooding out of the building. Mr. Herrera commented that we should go back to the way that the old Sunshine Task Force was administered. We should take ethics out of it. We should fund this body, said Mr. Herrera. Once you put the right kind of money into this task force, you're going to be sitting here quibbling over the deputy city attorney splitting hairs for the city attorney. You should not take any action whatsoever until you comply with the letter and the spirit of the law.
Members of the task force, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. I support Mr. Nee's motion because bottom line is you're just giving the Board of Supervisors carte blanche to take however damn well they want to settle this. If you put some pressure on them and say, unfortunately, because of the position you have put us in by failing to comply with the ordinance and apply and appoint appropriate people, we are going to be unable to meet in future. Going through forward tonight, meeting tonight because everybody is here, I think is a reasonable one. But proceeding along for months and months, or however damn long this Board of Supervisors takes to get their act in gear, is totally in violation of what the law clearly says. There must be a disabled person on this body at all times.
Thank you.
Hello, members. I'm Mike Adario. I'm the past chairperson of the San Francisco Street Artists Liaison Committee. I support Member Nee and also Member Wolf, but I think you're putting yourself into a trap. The first thing that the supervisors would love is for this body to go away. And if you say you're not going to have another meeting until they bring somebody, that's not forcing them. They would love this whole body to go away. This has been a thorn in their side.
Right.
You have to remember, there was an old bombardier saying, if you're not over the right target, if you're not receiving flack. And this committee, or this body, is receiving a lot of flack. I don't like what Supervisor Farrell did. I think it's a violation. I didn't hear about a complaint on him by bringing members, substituting members without public comment. That seems like the violation, and this is all rolling down from that. So I would like to see Mr. Wolf back reinstated, but I think what your motion will do will give them exactly what they want. This body to be jammed up, not hear anything, not settle any issues.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Hello, Supervisor.
Good evening, everyone. One of the things that became clear to me is that it really would be helpful for the public to have these meetings televised so that people know what happens in this room. I don't know what the right answer is. One thing that I would say as a supervisor is that I certainly was not aware of the requirement around the ADA disability before the vote was taken, and I think that other supervisors were in the same position. I don't know what the right answer is. I actually understand and respect where the city attorney is coming from, and I think the city attorney legal advice is correct. I think it's not just a legal question, though. There is an ethical question here, because it's not about whether or not you're complying with the law. That's part of it. But also, what kind of message does it send to move forward when you are in violation of the ordinance that you're enforcing? And I understand and appreciate with what Mr. Nee is saying. But at the same time, you are in the business of enforcing the Sunshine Ordinance, and what does it say when you're proceeding to act when you yourselves are in violation? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, it's Antonio Mims. I don't see the task force as an enforcement of. I don't see you being able to having the capacity or the ability to enforce justice on any front. So it seems like to not continue would definitely be an ethical thing, but it would be like covering your own backside. But you're here to cover our backside, and I don't feel like you can properly do that anyway. So you might as well just listen to what we have to say. The legal part of it, I don't know if anyone in this room is really concerned about the legal part of it as it's being presented. Like I think it's an ethical thing and a bureaucratic thing, and I think it's something for the future. But for right now, we have present matters. The letter was written, I guess, 12 years ago. Hopefully it'll be standing 12 years from now. But for right now, we have matters that we need to have, dealt with. I know the task force wants its sleep for the night, but we need our sleep too for the night. We've been losing a lot of sleep. This will be your first night of sleep loss.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes. Tonight.
I'll wait.
Yeah, I definitely think that if you decide to go forward and you are not following the ordinance by the citizens of the city and county of San Francisco, you're just pencil whipping this. You're pencil whipping this process. We're getting 1 minute now. It's 1 minute. You really don't want to hear what we have to say. I just think that you should follow the ordinance, and whatever you decide today isn't going to have any validity because you're violating the ordinance by trying to enforce the ordinance. The other thing too is that you talk about time. I've been waiting 4 months. 4 months, profanity. Another month for people so that y'all could actually make a legal body. I mean, I've been waiting 4 months, and it's like a whole bunch of pontificating, and this is just bad. This is bad.
Thank you.
Madam
Member
Chair.
David? Oh, I'm sorry. Member Nee had a comment first. No comment. Thanks.
I found the comments from Supervisor Campos and Mr. Adario very persuasive. Therefore, if the second will agree on my amended motion, I will withdraw it.
The second agrees and completely sees the validity in those points. Thank you for those who brought them forward.
Member David?
Yeah. I tend to agree with what Mr. Nee just said. That I do think that, I mean, it kills me to think that there are people here who are waiting to be heard, who, by us doing the legal thing would mean that they're not going to be heard. And that's really, it kind of goes against why we all are taking time up here away from our family, try to help people get, access to information, to the Sunshine Ordinance. But that being said, I also think that, as Supervisor Campos said, if we're not following the ordinance, like who else does? Right. So, I mean, it's a painful decision on my part, but I think that at this point I would have to vote to not continue tonight until the issue is resolved.
Is there a motion on the floor?
Well, I think your motion is, do we continue tonight or not?
Yes.
Right? Isn't that your
Do
motion?
I make it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we should before the vote.
Okay.
As one of the
I'm sorry,
complaints,
there's
I hope
one-
you follow the ordinance, which is that the public has the right to have it resolved within.
Mic is off.
How long will people have to wait until they get the complaint?
So we have a motion on the floor. Did someone second my motion? Great. take a vote.
Okay.
Okay.
I can barely get up and go. I came to the meeting, okay? Came to the meeting. I had my thing acted on. And some of these other people already came to me, had thing acted on. If you weren't going to act on it, don't have the meeting. You should have decided got that finished before we came here. Understand that? Before we came here, you should have decided whether you were going to act tonight or not. Before we came here, you should have decided whether you were going to act tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
There's a motion on the floor. Can we take a vote?
Just restate it.
Would you please read the motion or have it restated?
We'll have it restated.
Public comment is over. Yeah, this isn't like just.
Sorry, we're over public comment for now. We're trying to vote to move to see if we can, what we're going to decide, the quorum's going to decide. So, thank you.
Can you please restate the motion?
The motion is to move forward with tonight's agenda.
Member Nee?
Aye.
Member Nee, aye. Member Grant?
Aye.
I'm sorry. No, hold on. Member Monet?
Pass.
Member Washburn?
No.
Member Washburn, no. Member Pilpel?
Aye.
Member Pilpel, aye. Member David?
No.
Member David, no. Member Highland?
Aye.
Member Highland, aye. Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Fisher, aye. Chair Grant, can you please restate your vote?
I also have not yet.
Member Monet?
No.
Member Monet, no. Chair Grant?
No.
That means we go home?
Well, hold on.
There are 4 noes. Sorry. There are 4 noes and 5 ayes.
No.
No, there are only
There are only 8 of us.
I'm sorry. I'm
We
sorry.
did the math.
There are 4 noes, and I'm sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4 ayes. The motion fails.
So,
Through the chair, without a motion to continue the meeting will proceed.
I'd like to make a, without a motion, point of
Yes,
clarification.
we have an
Excuse
agenda.
me,
The meeting is
I
in
believe
session.
the
There has to-
motion was to move
Thank you.
forward, was to move forward with tonight's agenda.
Right.
Yes.
And in that case, without a, the noes have it. We don't move forward with tonight's agenda. And a tie vote goes to the negative.
Through the chair, the motion was to move forward with the agenda. The motion failed. However, the meeting still is in session. Without a motion to continue the meeting or to adjourn the meeting will continue.
Madam Chair, I believe Ms. Calvillo wants to say something.
Make a recommendation. Madam Chair.
Through the chair,
Madam-
please, I sincerely urge all members of the public to please be respectful, as we're all here to help each other, and so please be respectful. Please be respectful, members of the public.
Madam Calvillo?
And we
Madam
sincerely
Chair.
understand.
Excuse me, may I have order, please? We're respecting you guys. We give you guys time. We want to hear what you're saying. That's why. Yes, at the appropriate time. At the appropriate time. If you could respect me too, that would be great. I appreciate it. Now, Member Calvillo, if you could go forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One option you could consider this evening is hearing the cases tonight and having public comment, and then postponing your decision on the matter until the appropriate time. So it's a hybrid way forward. That way the individuals who've actually come here this evening couldn't make their presentations, and you could actually sit and hear that presentation, postponing your decision until the appropriate time.
It's an idea worth considering, certainly. However, that would mean that at a subsequent meeting, when the matters were brought back to the table, we would have to do the hearing process all over again in order to reach informed decisions. You know, I hate to send people away without our hearing what they have to say, the complaints and the defenses to those complaints. But you know, there's a question of, do we want to force people to come back to rehear the entire cases? I'm not sure I have an answer on that, and I appreciate Ms. Calvio's suggestion. It's, you know, again, well worth considering.
Member Washburn?
Well, I believe we could proceed on a case-by-case basis and permit the parties in interest to weigh in on what they would like to do.
There's no
Not right
public
now.
comment right now, sir. We're trying to figure this out. Thank you for one moment. If you could
Is the
respect.
discussion right now surrounding
It's not
the
a public
adjournment
comment
of the meeting?
No, it's not.
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
Thank you. Member Pilpel?
To Deputy City Attorney Threet, as you're thinking through this, as we're thinking through this, can you give us one or more options to proceed forward with that you think would be fair, reasonable, pick the word, something?
I believe all the options are on the table. The task force is at an impasse, and the way to move forward is for one or more people to reconsider their position, since we're at an impasse, and decide which way to go. You might want to have that discussion among yourselves and make a decision.
So I just want to make a point of order, I guess. So the city attorney has made it, in my opinion, clear that the motion that was out there failed, and that when the motion fails, that we're still agendaized and we move forward with the meeting. So I would suggest that we ask the filer of 10, would they like us to hear his complaint, or would he like it postponed? And then we could ask the next filer 11, would they like us to hear his complaint or have it postponed? And so this way, we're having a very full discussion. I think the members of the public understand the issue that we're grappling with, and they also can weigh in on their opinion and how they would like to move forward with their case. And so that would be my suggestion, instead of us, or let's have a motion to adjourn and vote on that. But it seems to me one or the other. We're either adjourning or we're hearing cases. So let's do one way or the other.
I mean, even if we hear the members of the public's cases now, as long as they're willing to come back again, I'm happy to hear it now and happy to hear it again.
Sorry, excuse me. I'm trying to respect you. Please respect our conversation. We're trying to figure this out to get the best, to make sure everyone gets what they need out of this. So,
Madam Chair,
Mr. Nee?
if we want to move forward with tonight's meeting, my own reading of parliamentary law is that in the previous motion to move forward, the noes were the prevailing side. So if somebody who voted no wanted to bring back the motion for reconsideration, they could do so, and we could vote on it again.
That's an option, yes.
Madam Clerk, perhaps you could refresh us. Who were the no votes on the previous motion?
The no votes were Chair Grant, Member Monet, Member Washburn, and Member David.
Okay, so if one of those four would like to revisit the motion, they could do so. Somebody who voted yes could not do so. It has to come from the prevailing side, which was the no side.
So I respectfully disagree with Member Nee on that. I feel that the city attorney has made it fairly clear that we can move forward without revisiting that vote. So it seems to me that we don't need to revisit the vote in order to move forward. But what we could do is we could agree to do an adjournment vote. If it passes, we adjourn. If it doesn't pass, we move forward with the meeting. I think that, if we can agree on something like that, I mean, the other problem that we're going to have is that if one of us revisits the vote and it's a 5-4 vote, I mean, that
Can't be 5-4.
I mean,
There are
5
only
to
8
3.
of us 3.
But my
Here.
point is that we're not going to. It's potentially not getting to 6, which then brings up a whole other issue. I know that's the bylaws tonight.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
move to adjourn.
Second.
We will, somehow.
Can I call for discussion? Ms. Fisher?
I'm going to sound like a broken record here. I feel like I'm in the Israeli Knesset again. Talk about parliamentary procedure. I'm looking at the faces of this room, and I want to hear what you have to say. I'm sorry about the legalities and the issues of all this, and I want to ask DCA 3 one more time. I'm sorry to put you in this position. Can we go forward with this meeting?
I think my advice was fairly clear, and the moving forward with the meeting would be a violation of 6730.
So don't, yeah.
And nevertheless, if you took action, the action would be valid action.
I still want to hear what I'm looking at this list, and people came here. I took BART here. People took Muni. People got here somehow at great expense and time. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. But, Madam, with all due respect, I think what we were trying to get at is if we hear these cases and nothing comes of it because we were found in violation, then it was a waste of their time to come here today. So we can just listen without any kind of result. And that's what I want to get as a result. So I don't want to waste people's time anymore. But if you want to be heard, I think that's important. But I don't want it to be to the point, as you just said, that we don't get anything accomplished so that's a waste of your time. So I'd rather you come back when everything is up and up. And that's how I feel. So with that, I will give it to Ms. Mani.
Thank you. And so I just want to make a very quick comment because I know all of you have been waiting very long. We're all volunteers here, and we're all working together. We all have no agenda. We are all here to practice. Okay, fine. I personally, and I believe at least a few others here, have no agenda, and we're truly here to serve the members of the public. We're here for a reason. This is why we're so passionate. Supervisor Campos made the very valid point, which others also made in addition to him, after him, and before him, quoting 6730, where it clearly does say at all times the task force shall include at least one member, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, we certainly do have to practice what we preach, which is adhering to sunshine. And while Member Fisher and others as well, I strongly feel that it's quite urgent to hear what every single person here has to say. As a human, as a person, my heart goes out to everyone for all of their concerns, everything that they want us to hear. But if we do go forward, I truly believe that if we do go forward, we will be in violation. And we won't be practicing what we are supposed to preach. So while I sincerely apologize, and I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth or anything to that effect, but I would apologize on behalf of the task force, my task force colleagues here, in wasting your time if some of you feel that way. However, I sincerely hope you all see the core point, which is adhering to this ordinance and practicing what we're preaching.
I I have a question for you from a member of the public. They're asking or suggesting that a motion to adjourn is not debatable, that this is something that we as a task force can just make a motion and then that's it. Is that correct?
You're the parliamentarian, is that true? Ms. Osbury is our parliamentarian, and she says that is the case.
Okay. The motion was made. It was seconded. Then I'd like to adjourn this meeting till
No,
further.
no. We vote.
Take a vote.
We vote.
Take a vote.
We vote.
That we will adjourn this meeting. Sorry.
Okay.
Member Nee?
No.
Member Nee, no.
No one adjournment.
No on adjournment?
No on adjournment.
Member Monet?
Wait.
Aye.
Wait.
Member Monet,
Sorry.
aye.
Clarification. No means we adjourn?
No.
No,
No
he's
means we do not
Not
adjourn.
adjourn.
No means we go
Motion is to
forward.
adjourn.
Aye means to
We
adjourn.
Member
Thank you.
Washburn?
Aye.
Member Washburn, aye. Member Pilpel?
No.
Member Pilpel, no. Member David?
Aye.
Member David, aye. Member Highland?
No.
Member Highland, no. Member Fisher?
Pass. What? I haven't done it all night. It comes back to me, right?
Member Fisher?
Doesn't pass come back to me? It's not an abstention.
Yeah, no.
All right, can I change that, Ms. Osbury?
Yes. Member Fisher?
My vote is no.
Member Fisher, no. Chair Grant?
Aye.
Chair Grant, aye. The motion fails. There are 4 ayes and 4 noes.
So let's go forward and hear 10.
So that means that we are going to hear these? So that means we'll continue with the agenda and go with file number 10 as earlier decided?
Unless there's another procedural motion where someone wants to reconsider it and change their vote, you should move along with the agenda.
I'd like to adjourn this meeting.
Can I?
Mr. Member Pilpel?
I can sense where things may be going here, but at a minimum, could I just suggest that we deal with item 9? I'm on the mic. That we deal with item 9 to talk about when our next meeting might be, even if we don't, because right now there was. Let me give some context on that. Okay.
Our next meeting is July 11th, correct?
Well, but that was by order of the previous task force. I just want to be clear that we're all good to meet that night, assuming that we legally can meet. I think that's sort of important. The other stuff, whatever we do, we do. And maybe that's just a short discussion to just confirm that we're all available for the 11th and we're good to go.
I think that's already on the agenda, if I'm not mistaken, of July 11th. And by that time, we can have worked out some of these issues so that
Okay.
people come and we can
So
hear
then
their
maybe we
filings.
don't have to have that discussion tonight. Okay.
No.
I'm good. That was just a concern. Okay.
Great.
Fisher going to reconsider.
Ms. Fisher, are you going to reconsider your vote?
Yes, I'd like to reconsider my vote.
So do we go through? So let's take our vote again.
Let's go again.
This is for adjournment.
Yes, for adjournment.
For adjournment.
I'd like to call the vote again. Or you have to do that, actually.
Yeah, I just did.
You like the roll call?
I'd like to do a roll call vote.
Okay. Member Nee?
No.
Member Nee, no. Member Monet?
Aye.
Member Monet, aye. Member Washburn?
Aye.
Member Washburn, aye. Member Pilpel?
No.
Member Pilpel, no. Member David?
Aye.
Member David, aye. Member Highland?
Nope.
Member Highland, no. Member Fisher?
Aye.
Member Fisher, aye. Chair Grant?
Aye.
Chair Grant, aye. There are 5 ayes, 3 noes.
Can I?
Meeting is adjourned.
The meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for your time and patience.
I don't know, but
Thank you. These mics are off, right? Mics are off.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're going to cut them right back to us from the Board of Supervisors. That's what I think.